cute.
Like she did.
That's very cute.
Happy birthday.
Okay.
Oh, the birthday boy.
So everybody, if we can get everybody's attention,
Birthday
more
boy.
minutes out there? Let me hold on one second. More members out here?
Howard.
I know y'all got your tune.
Howard. Kate.
So I'm going to, Mr. Pace is going to introduce someone who's going to address us. And I think we should be smiling when we see him because they have been the hosts with the most. This is a wonderful event space. Mr. Pace.
Just want to introduce you all to Mr. Kyle Wade, the President and CEO of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Has been President and CEO since 2015. Just wanted to come speak to you all about the food bank's mission. I'm sure a lot of you know him as well. And we'll also be taking a tour of the facilities later on this afternoon. All right. Thank you.
Come right here so we can hear you.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate the City of Atlanta leadership. Madam President, thank you for being here.
Oh,
Council
thank you for
members.
having us.
We love having some of our partners from the city here visiting with us today. I know Councilmember Shepherd and I are Leadership Atlanta classmates, and got a lot of other sort of friends and connections in the room. So Mr. Pace asked me to just mention a few things about the food bank and who we are, what we do, what our history is. The Atlanta Community Food Bank is one of the largest hunger relief organizations in the Southeast. As some of you already know all this, but we serve 29 counties across Metro Atlanta and North Georgia. We're a regional organization. And across that 29 county region, we support about 700 different partner agencies that get food from us and distribute it to people in need in their local communities. Through that network, this past year, we provided about 61 million meals to 750,000 people in those 29 counties. And so we've got a pretty big scope to our work. We've grown a lot since the recession. A lot of things, certainly there was a lot of need that came about from the recession, but also I think just some structural changes to our economy impacting low and moderate income families more than the rest of the population. And so we've had to really grow our output. Since 2008, we've increased the meals we provide the community by about 5 times what we were doing then. As we've grown over those years, we've also dramatically shifted the kinds of foods that we provide to the community. So more than 40% of what we distribute now is either fresh or frozen, which most people think that we're just distributing canned goods, but 40% is fresh or frozen, and that includes about 16 million pounds of fresh produce that we distribute every year to people in need across the community. So, that's kind of at a high level, sort of the scope and scale of what we do at the food bank. We, of course, work through a variety of different partnerships in the community to get our work done. In addition to those 700 partners I mentioned, we are actively working with a number of schools in a variety of school systems around the region to get more food into the homes of more people more frequently. We're actively working now with 11 school districts to connect the kids and families served by those schools with more food. We are working with a variety of healthcare organizations now. We've got partnerships with Grady, with CHOA, to connect their patients with greater food access. There's a strong correlation between food insecurity and health, and so working directly with healthcare organizations helps us address that. And we, of course, are very involved in the sort of public policy space. At the federal level, we're really active in the conversation around the Farm Bill that's being debated. They're currently kind of sitting in conference committee right now, evaluating House and Senate versions of the same bill. And so we're very actively engaged in that conversation, trying to ensure that the final farm bill really helps strengthen families and food banks and farmers in ways that make our community stronger. At the state level, we of course work on a variety of different matters and are very interested in how the election's going to turn out next week and how we begin to build relationships so that we can work with whoever wins and is going to serve as our next governor and lieutenant governor and so forth. We've got great relationships with Commissioner Gary Black and the agricultural community that we intend to continue to work with them around those partnerships. And we work at the municipal level in a variety of ways over the years. Councilmember Young has been just a tremendous supporter of ours, great partner, and we worked with Councilmember Dickens and others on different initiatives. We've worked with a variety of other municipalities and jurisdictions on ways that we can provide support to their constituents. So we're the food bank. We work with everybody. We're trying to ensure that everybody has access to all the food that they need. And we do that in partnership with public, private, and everything in between. So I don't know if anybody
Well,
has any
first, I
questions?
want to say thank you because I don't think there's any district in the city that you're not operating in some way, either through one of your partners that distributes food. And so, first of all, thank you for letting us come here and thank you for what you do in the community. Does anybody have any questions for him? Mr. Matsakai.
Can you talk about the community garden program that you have?
Sure. So we have an affiliated organization, the Foodwell Alliance, that is investing in the capacity of urban agriculture and community gardens around the region. In particular, they focus on the 5 core counties around Metro Atlanta. And we have long at the Food Bank had a community gardening program. We helped start a variety of community gardens around the region. More and more of that work is going to be migrating to Foodwell Alliance, just because that's kind of where they have really chosen to focus. And it's going to allow that program to grow and sort of thrive with increased attention to it. But it's a great example of community building and ways in which local communities can develop food resiliency.
How many sites do you all have, community gardens?
So they are not our sites, right? They are owned and operated by local community entities. There are several hundred of them. And there's a map available that can get you where some of those are. It's an important part of the equation. Yes?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, so I want to thank you because you all work with my community garden. I have a community garden over in Calvin, and you all have done a tremendous amount of work for me over there. Every year we have an annual event in the spring where we start to kick off our community gardens, and you all come over with demonstrations along with the Alliance. My office works with you all very closely in terms of putting programs out into the community. So thank you for that. And also, I know that you also do distribution in Pittman Park and YMCA. I have a senior program for the seniors actually come to these facilities. And once a month, whenever you all come out and give out food and they organize around it. So I want to thank you. I want to ask you about this map. So this map, see the Atlanta food insecurity. Is this map based on what you distribute out, or what is the whole? How does this map? Where does the colors come from? What's the data associated with that?
So that map is not based on the food that we distribute. That's based on the percentage of people facing food insecurity in the different census tracts represented by the shadings of that map, right?
And that data comes from the census?
Census.
It comes from a combination of sources, but Feeding America, our national organization, helped us, along with Boston Consulting Group, develop that data. It's derived from census data, but it's not exclusively derived from census data.
So when you look at the map, it's really interesting. My district has had some of the highest areas of insecurity rates, 41 to 69%. Then I think Howard, you're next, and then other neighborhoods. Howard, you just got a little bit up there above head, I think. Is it Howard? Yeah. You got a flawless in 10%.
He doesn't need to worry about food.
Okay.
Good. Well, you know, I think what it highlights, Joyce, right, is that, you know, this map is gonna look a lot like other kinds of maps.
The demographics of your neighborhood, it really does match the demographics.
Yes, it's gonna, so when we map out, housing vulnerability, when we map out, income inequality, when we map out those kind of things, poverty, you know, that, all of that is gonna be in a similar distribution pattern as what you see there with food insecurity. And what that speaks to is that, hunger in our region is not a problem of not having enough food, right? It is a problem of people not being able to afford to buy their own food. It is an economic issue, as much as anything else. Now, we can help alleviate the economic issue because there's waste in the system, excess in the system, and if we can figure out the logistics, we can get excess supply over here to where there's unmet demand, right? That's what the food bank does.
Thank you so much, and thank you, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to come back. I'm trying to keep us going. Yes.
I let Joy go in front of me. Okay, so thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. I'm Andrea Boone, and from time to time I run into families or individuals that need food. Of course, I can't call here and get them a bag. Who on your staff can I talk with to get the sites in my area, the churches that do it every other Wednesday, or I know they do it so often. I know Providence, West Hunter, different places. Who on your staff can I talk with if I want to get a family some food?
So first of all, we have online a resource called our agency locator, and you can go and type in a zip code or an address, and it will name some of our partners in that local area online. In addition, here's my card.
Okay.
If you'll send me an email,
Thank you.
I will connect you with the appropriate person on our team who can help support that. And then I know I need to leave, but it's important for me to say this also because I know this is in the news. As y'all know, Food Bank's in the middle of a capital campaign. We're building a new building, relocating from this property, moving. And that new building is not in the city of Atlanta. It's in East Point. It's just outside the city of Atlanta. Our property line will be the city of Atlanta border.
It's on behind Camp Creek Parkway.
Behind Camp Creek Parkway. That said, it's important to say that even though our geographic center will not be in the city of Atlanta, the city of Atlanta continues to be a significant priority for the food bank. We're a regional organization. We serve the community not out of this building, although we have meetings here, but out in all those partners. And those partners are going to continue to exist. We're going to provide them with more food and better services to the community. We intend to continue to be at leadership tables in the city to help inform the discussion in the city about food security. So we just want you all to know that we may be moving, but we're not leaving, and want to continue to be a resource to the city of Atlanta as much as we are to anybody else.
When are you expecting to move? Do you have a?
We expect to be in the new facility early 2020.
Ms. Boone?
Yes, and let Reverend Charles Weems know that we appreciate all his efforts in the corridor.
Simpson Road, yep.
Yes.
Yeah, he does.
Can I
Thank
get
you
your
so
card?
much.
Yes.
I have mine.
So let's give him a hand again. While he's passing out his card, Mr. Pace.
And then lastly, I wanted to bring up our caterers for today, Chef Colette and Miss Gail.
Come on up.
They cater some other events for the city of Atlanta, I believe a couple of council members as well. They'll also have their cards up there, so if you all have any other events that you need food, kind of consider them for you.
Anybody enjoy the food?
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to keep it moving. The next committees hopefully don't have a whole lot, so let's keep the discussion going. Ms. Smith will take over for zoning committee.
Okay. Zoning committee, which I know is everyone's favorite, and it is the most important committee. We've got the definition here, you can read that. I'll just talk for just a second about the process of zoning papers. How they work is the applicant comes in and applies for a zoning change through the zoning department in the Bureau of Planning and Bureau of Buildings, or a council person can drop a piece of zoning legislation. Then it's read in, that's why I give you all the bathroom breaks, is during the first reads. Because we read all of the applications that have come in, so they get a first read on the council floor. If an individual council person reads it in at the end of a meeting, that is considered the first read. So then it goes out to the NPUs. So the reason that it goes to the NPUs is I've even got one or two little areas that don't have a neighborhood, but most NPUs will then send it to the respective neighborhood, but the city doesn't require it. And really, in my opinion, NPUs were developed because of zoning issues. That's truly what the NPUs do, is zoning issues. So, anyway, it goes to usually, like I said, it goes to the NPU, then it goes to the neighborhood, comes back to the NPU, then it comes to the city, back to the city, and it goes to the ZRB, then it comes back to us at full council. And it is not on consent. It has that many reads are required with zoning. So that's why we sound those papers that many times. I'm gonna veer off here for just a second and talk about public comment during zoning. I feel very strong about this. If we start allowing public comment, and there are some people around that will remember when we used to be able to speak at zoning meetings and they allowed public comment. The zoning meetings, you think CD and finance and public safety go long? The zoning committee meetings went longer because people would discuss it at the NPU, then they would discuss it at ZRB, and then they would come to the zoning, and then they would come to the full council meetings. And this has happened to me before I was a council person, you may have worked really hard on a zoning paper within your neighborhood, and then you get down to the city council and you think everything is fine, you've watched it go through the process, you worked out your deals or whatever with your developer, and then you see somebody you've never seen before stand up at the zoning committee or at city council and speak against or for or whatever, and you're going, who is this neighbor that I've never seen before? And so I remember when they put in the charter that you could no longer speak at the council level. And for me, I feel like it's gone more smoothly because you let the neighborhood handle it on the neighborhood level, the NPU handle it on their level. But if we go back to allowing public, this is my opinion, we go back to allowing public speaking about any issues, then we sort of negate. This is my opinion, again, it's my opinion, but I feel like we negate the NPU process. Because you could run around the last minute and get 30 of your friends to come up and speak at the zoning or at the council level, and it could change everything that the NPU in the neighborhood has worked on. So now I'll go back to the process. So the process is the NPU.
Got about 10 more minutes.
I'm fixing to be done. ZRB, and then it comes to the zoning committee, and then it comes back to council. Again, it is not on consent because all the papers are read and sounded, if you will, again at the full council meeting. The only other thing I want to talk about is the zoning rewrite, which for years we have complained that zoning book is about this thick. Y'all seen Haymore and now Anna Maria and them carry that book around. It is no longer, I can remember a time when it was like a document that was just a
big document. Now they put it into the 3-ring binders that are this big. So we all said, y'all, we've done so many amendments to the zoning code that it's gotten so big. So we asked the administration, and it's been kind of going on for years, to try to do a zoning rewrite so that we can make the book a little bit smaller, easier, like you're having a meeting about permitting tomorrow. One of the reasons permitting is hard is because of all the legislation that we have put, because we are so reactive. We have that neighbor that calls us that they're gonna build something and they're gonna use a certain type of shingle and that neighbor doesn't like it, and we're getting, as we called it earlier, cussed at, or what did we call it? And we will drop a piece of legislation that says you can't use XYZ shingle in an R4 or whatever that neighborhood is in which that person lives. So we put so many restrictions. It's one of the reasons that when people come down and complain about the permitting process, we're not happy, but we're not happy. Also, this is one of those things where people are just not happy. If it were really quick, then your neighbor would call and say, they're putting up the shingles. And so it didn't get vetted thoroughly. So this is one of those situations where we're in kind of a mess. So the zoning rewrite, there is nothing easy about this zoning rewrite. As y'all know, we've had some public meetings. We have them at the Buckhead Church and down where Joyce isn't sitting here now. But we have them down at the Atlanta Area Metro Tech College. And so they try to keep them kind of consistent at the same places, which at first I didn't even like that, but I think it's really good because now you remember, oh, that's the zoning rewrite. They're working on that again. Let's go give our input. And y'all, even we give our input on those meetings. So it's done by consultants. I think they do a great job. Of course, I work kind of closely, sort of like Jennifer works with the parliamentarian. I know all of those guys that work on the zoning rewrite. But we've done this year, phase 1, we codified that in May of this last year. And you can read this. I won't read it out loud. And then we're doing, phase 2 is going on right now. It has been dropped and it is out in the review process right now. And hopefully we might, I don't know, Corinne, will we get it done by the end of the year? Probably not. Probably not. She's got, y'all, she's going like this. She's got her fingers crossed, but I doubt that we will. But anyway, again, it's not on consent agenda. So, any questions?
Ms. Hyde.
I just wanted to say, I thought you made a really, really good point at the last zoning meeting where we were getting some negative feedback from members of the public saying, why don't you allow public comment? And part of your explanation was, if we have a process and if we allow public comment here at the 12th hour, people won't use the process, and the process happens in the neighborhood where it's easy for people to come and look at each other in the eye and all be together and try to work things out. And if we don't encourage people to do that and let them run down to city council at the last minute, that you're not going to have a meaningful process. So I appreciated your sharing your thoughts on that, and I thought that was a very good response.
Yeah, that's why I say it kind of negates the NPUs. And if we're
And
gonna
the
do that-
ZRB.
Well, and the ZRB, true, and the ZRB.
Mhm.
So, and then y'all, do y'all understand that the ZRB is a board of citizens, but they are like architects, they're experts in that field. And so, when we get the zoning report, this is why zoning doesn't need briefing. Y'all, we get our answer. It's like we've got the cheat sheet with us on your agenda. It tells you, the NPU voted, you know, to approve, deny, you know, however, whatever they said. Conditions, the ZRB, it tells you what the ZRB recommended, it tells you what staff recommended, and y'all get a sheet, you get an email where the staff sends out their recommendations. If you want to know something about a project that's in your district or someone else's district, read the staff reports. Those are very in-depth. And then, of course, you can call the planner of that area, because every NPU's got a planner, and you can ask them questions. They're very familiar with the projects. So,
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
anyway,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Let's go to Transportation Committee, Mr. Dickens.
All right. So, we have a sheet for all this, but we did a few things this year already. Equity and transportation planning regarding the Renew Atlanta and T-SPOS, as well as Public Works. That was early in the year, February. Then also early in the year in February, we part of our John Lewis recognition is this art wall at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, which they're working on now, and it'll be done actually a couple of weeks before the Super Bowl. So we'll get an announcement about that. Then license leading pedestrian intervals. That's Amir's legislation, which was great to give a delay for crosswalks, to give pedestrians a little bit more time, pedestrian and cyclists, I should say, a little bit more time to get across. So those were good, significant pieces of legislation. We had work sessions on the Atlanta Department of Transportation recommendation, which we are now in what we call a working group to work towards that, and the people that are involved in that are the DPW, head of DPW, the head of planning, deputy COO, COO. It was the head of Renew. Tom was there, and I guess that whoever the new replacement, that person will attend, plus some community members, CIDs, et cetera, are all figuring out how to do this. Atlanta Department of Transportation in a efficient, effective way to go about it. And just giving you a heads up that it probably will be in the new budget coming up, we'll probably be asking for some allocation of the interim head of that to get started, to hire that person and probably some staffers. And then the following year will be the full implementation of a new Department of Transportation. So that's going to take some time, but that's where we are with that. And then, of course, we spent a lot of time in the shareless, dockless mobility ordinance related to the scooters and those rental devices. We're still doing that, but that's coming down. We should be getting ready to vote on that soon. The packet has gone from several pages down to about 3 or 4. It's getting slimmer. A lot of work has gone into it, a number of work sessions, so we should be headed towards having this scooter legislation, as we call it. We have received several updates. One major update, as you can remember, we started off the end of last year with the airport having a power outage. So a lot of the first part of January and February was filled with getting that back on track, finding out our emergency preparedness plans and backups and all that stuff. That's moving along. Of course, we got an update just last week on the pedestrian bridges and parking decks at the airport. Council's been instrumental in that over the past few years, actually. And we did a tour of the airport, and we were going to do another tour, but then something else came up, something big blocked our tour. But we've done those things. And of course, there was a new appointment of a new airport general manager. We all got to meet Mr. Selden, John Selden, coming from JFK. I also mentioned a couple other items that weren't necessarily legislative, but more MARTA. Our input as a council was heard by some of you great district reps hosting events in your communities to be able to gather community input with MARTA being there, so that was good. And then a number of us wrote letters that, particularly me since I don't have a district, to host people in. At-large problems, y'all supposed to say all. So, wrote letters, and I think we came out with a good more MARTA plan. Not everything, but good enough for the limited resources that we have. And then we are waiting on Renew. We all are aware that there are some challenges with the amount of money and some of the expenses and estimations were off. We don't know how much because we don't have a report yet. Just know that this committee, and as chairperson and committee members have all been pushing to get that, and hopefully we'll get that, next cycle.
Can we ask Ms. Noble where the status of her audit on that is?
We can.
Yes, we are finishing field work this week, so we're hopefully writing next week. Then we have to do technical reviews, so that probably means we're 6 weeks out. Time to see where that falls.
So that's end of year, basically.
Yeah, end of the year.
So we'll get our report from Renew about, projects and allocation of resources, et cetera. They'll give us the, which complete streets have been done, which resurfacing, repaving, which buildings have been built, how much money that took, how much money's left. But we want to get your report to go along with that. So
Who's over Renew now? Tom Wyatt left, right?
Tom?
Michelle Wynn.
She's
Yes.
over it?
She's the interim.
Interim, yes.
Michelle Wynn.
And there's no necessarily, and that's part of the report that I want to get is, I've been hearing conflicting things about how they plan to, have leadership of Renew. Either it will be a new leader will be hired and vetted and then hired, hopefully. And then, or it will just be reporting to the deputy COO that's kind of over those transportation, public works type things.
I do have, I would do that.
Right. Last thing is the airport. We spoke about this a little bit during the presentation related to the agenda for the state, but it goes without saying that the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport is always under scrutiny, but always a desired prize for anybody. They love it and they love to hate on it in certain ways. So this isn't new for this takeover discussion, but it is aggressive this time around. And I just wanted to applaud all the members who have had meetings, private meetings with state representatives, public meetings on behalf of the council and the mayor's office, et cetera, to at least slow that down. Of course, you never know with the legislature. They could pop up at any moment and write something up and try to ram it through, but all hands on deck approach to that just has been helpful. So it doesn't necessarily make a report from no piece of legislation says, please don't take our airport. But,
Except for the bond language, it's like, you can't take our airport until the bonds are paid off.
that's a good one. But that's kind of a poison pill in there. Yeah. But the point is that there's effective ways of being, advocates and, positioning ourselves in ways that a number of us have been doing on that. So I just wanted to say that. And that's about it.
And Mr. Hillis,
So on the Renew and T-Splosh report,
speak up so the,
on the Renew and T-Splosh report, have they given you a time certain, a time certain?
Yes, they said they've given me 2 time certains. Last time certain, they didn't make that time certain. This time certain is the November, whatever the next cycle, the next meeting, the next committee meeting.
If they don't make that time certain, we're gonna subpoena them, correct?
We can,
yes, you can.
the 14th.
You just sent an open records act request, you didn't get a subpoena.
Yeah, and each time they gave me an email the morning of, which I
Right,
told them was totally unacceptable.
I agree.
I think they sent they sent an email the night before, like, I think we might not be ready, and in the morning of, we're not ready. So it was,
Well, doesn't email excuse you anyway?
yeah.
Okay.
And, so this is, going back to the ADOT discussion, and kind of the Renew as well. So I think the presentation and work session we had that was beginning of the year. So remind me, so the Renew and T-Splosh will then fall under ADOT, and I guess the head of Renew and T-Splosh would be whoever that commissioner ends up being, correct?
Right, and that's part of the working group is trying to figure out how to best line these resources up. So, but it is perceived that the Renew Atlanta would fall up under this Department of Transportation. The transportation office that's in the DPW will fall under there. Certain planning elements would fall under there as well. And a couple of pieces of loose project groups in the city that are transportation related would all fall under this Department of Transportation leadership. It'll be a commissioner and some deputy commissioners. And those people may be people that are already employed by us. Everybody have a fair shot at applying, I would imagine, but we are talking about a restructuring that way.
And to that same restructuring point, has there been any discussion about what would happen with solid waste? Would be their own office, or?
Well, it'll be solid waste and fleet would.
There we go, fleet.
Yeah, it'll just stay, it'll be still public works.
For fleet and solid
You
waste.
just be pulling out the transportation part of DPW, and so DPW was slim a little bit because of the Office of Transportation people would come over to the Department of Transportation, but they would be able to, DPW would then be able to focus on the things like solid waste, recycling, fleet.
Thank you.
Are you done, Ms. Shepherd?
So I am concerned. First of all, how long do we have left on Renew Atlanta? What is the time frame in terms of the funding and the money and all of that? How long, what's left? Do anybody know?
2021.
It's bond money, so once the 250 gets spent.
Well, what, I think, are you asking how much,
Well,
yeah, because, it's actually two answers. We can't go up again if we wanted to go for another tranche at it. I think we have to wait till 2021
Okay,
or
so we'll go for
2022.
another tranche. But what we have now in terms of allocation of money for Renew Atlanta, will be finishing. Our
Well-
goal is for it to be finished in 2021.
Well, yeah, it's $250 million that's being spent down daily, so it could be gone 2020, 2021, 20.
And that's what we're trying to figure out is what's left.
Right.
It's already gone. It's
What-
already gone.
It's all gone.
Basically allocated. It's all allocated.
It's all allocated.
It's all allocated.
It's over allocated.
It's way over.
Let's put it this way, Ms. Shepherd, whether it's allocated or spent, that's the question mark. The council has not received reporting that tells us where we are, what projects have been funded, what projects are underway. So all of that is a question mark, and that's what he's trying to get them to come to report, and they have not reported.
And even their previous report 3 months ago was not complete. It was fairly vague, and they were saying, well, we'll get, because that was when Tom had just got there, and he was saying, things are not, yeah, I'm looking at these numbers, and we got to get an update. And we're like, okay, you're gonna bring your update in at your next meet, at the October meeting. Yes, in the October meeting, we'll give you a better update. It'll have more clarification on the spend. It'll have better projections and all that stuff. And we were like, well, we wish we would have had this in July, but since you're new, we're gonna wait. And then he didn't make yeah, then October came, and now we're in November. So we really are about 6 months behind on a good report.
So I am concerned. Because there's projects for every district across the city. And, so we really need to work on that. I am concerned about who is gonna actually be appointed to that position. It appears that we don't have anybody yet who has been able to successfully do this project and lead it. And I am concerned about the person who's there now because, well.
All right.
You just have a concern. Keep it moving.
How many agree with the concern?
Huh?
How many agree
No,
with the
no, miss, we're not voting. Keep going.
No straw polls.
We're gonna leave it at that.
But we need to really, I'm just gonna say, we gotta get a handle on this. I've already asked for a meeting for them to sit down and go over my projects. Now, I will say the OEAM went over my projects with me week before last. I don't know if they met with other council members because they are trying to get a documented report. But the streets and the resurfacing and all of that side, I'm not sure where we are. I have no clue, and I'm trying to figure it out.
And nobody else does either, so.
And so that was, so what I'm trying to get to at the end of the year, but it's because of the G word and other stuff is kind of taking up a lot of the time and the brain power, is I hear a lot of district reps ask this question all the time. where are my sidewalks? When am I gonna get more? Where's the money for sidewalks? So basically there's a bucket of questions that often come, and they come at different points. And it would be nice if you had one way of answering that question, which is, here's the sidewalk activities for this year broken out by district. Here's the money that's available. Here's the, you know what I mean? So it would be best to present to council members in a, they'd like to talk, you guys want to know what paving money I have and where is it going to take place? What sidewalk money I have and where is it going to take?
I'm sorry, what you say?
Remember, we had it in pots. We didn't do it the way we did the quality of life, which I wish we had. But what we did was we said each council member has X amount for your local spend. So that's the 12 different districts have X amount. And then there's the citywide.
The citywide, right.
So I know some council districts, most of all of their local pots were spent, pretty much, because we did those projects early.
Allocated.
We allocated some of them. I still got some things.
Well, and see, that's the thing.
Well, that's the question. Let me
Did it
just say,
get
I
built
think
or
I
did
did.
it
I
not
don't know.
get built? Was the money spent or was the money not spent?
So
I'm talking-
all I've heard is that they knew, because I said to them, I said, you haven't presented and you don't, we're angry about this, we want to find out. And I said, at least for the district reps, I think they would want to know, is there $5 point whatever million, is it spent, is it not? They were like, no, we know better than to spend that. So y'all's money, that would be politically bad.
No, but there were some districts, and I remember the very first one was District 10, because the very first tranche of projects we did was a list for District 10 that pretty much spent the local pot.
Right. No, I'm not saying that it's not spent yet. I'm saying it's not spent outside of it's not in jeopardy of being undone.
Right.
Reallocated. It's not in jeopardy. But what may be in jeopardy of being reallocated is a citywide project or a OEAM project. But all of the projects that you guys put in as district reps, those are still slated to be completed or already completed.
Okay, and then I heard Howard say, or somebody else say that we don't have enough money.
Right, so we don't call on him next. Have you finished?
Okay. So I'm
Are
done.
you done, Ms. Shepherd?
I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Shutt.
Well, so just one thing on that, and then I got a different question. Remember, I mean, it was an open secret from the start that there was, yeah, the projects were oversubscribed, I think is the politically correct way to say it. So those chickens are coming home to roost. Here's my question, Andre, is the LMIG program working, or is it having problems too?
The LMIG? I need to ask about that. I haven't.
Seems like they're behind.
That is the
Local maintenance
state
improvement
funding
grants.
local road.
Yeah,
Local,
they mill, wheat mill and they pay.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll need to get an update on that because that's a good pool of money that we put into each year.
And then
And then I need to find out about the 5% that you put in when we did this, that every year maintenance.
Where's that money?
Where's that money, right? You recall that?
Yeah.
You know,
I recall we spent some of it too, but that's not right.
Okay, I'll get an
Okay,
update on
Ms.
that.
Overstreet.
That's why I like the way Moore Marta did their allotted money. Because they knew that we had way more projects that really needed to be done, but we're only gonna get $2.7 million. We didn't do that with Renew. Like, I wasn't looking at it like that because I was a citizen at the time. And so I was trusting my money to be spent properly. You council people. Did y'all not have a handle? But honestly,
Oh! He lived down the street.
but honestly, that's why I really do like the way that Moore Marta did it. It wasn't popular at all to make those decisions, and they really got it for a whole year almost.
But
they
you all are
still
gonna have to do that.
But that's what I'm saying. So that's where we are. When we find out where we are, council, we're really gonna have to make them come up with a project list that they have to stand by, where we can check the list as they go through their project. They have to talk about what they're going to do with the money and how much we have to work with at this point. They have to do that.
We have to do.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, we have to do that. We have to, because it's not popular, but these promise meetings, and I call them promise meetings to my people, my District 11 people know what a promise meeting is.
What's the promise meeting?
That's them coming to show us all those beautiful renderings and keep changing the date on when we're gonna get it. You know, these promise meetings are just non-productive, and now they're downright angry. You know, so we might as well just go ahead on and snap that Band-Aid off. It just is what it is. And we need to put that project list out there, and we need to stick to it. As long as District 11 is no, seriously. We need to definitely, we need to get to the bottom of it. We need to know how much we're talking about.
Right.
And we need to make sure that the public really understands, like some kind of way, like I even had them come to the last HOA meeting that I went to last week. I had Condredge, I keep getting his name wrong, but I had Condredge, you know, he works right up under Michelle. He's their project manager.
Oh.
Condredge Lewis, I think I'm saying his name right. I had him come to the meeting because he's done 4 promise meetings.
The ones at Cascade?
For Cascade Phase
Oh,
1.
yeah, gosh.
4 promise
People
meetings.
just
They
looking for
were
some street
waiting on
furniture.
him. They were waiting on him, and I said, I'm coming with you, Contras, because it's gonna be ugly. I said, so what you need to do is make sure you put down exactly the date that you first started your promise meetings, because you can't get away from that. You're gonna have to go back to come up. So he did. He wrote down, I know that I met with you guys October 2016. It's an ugly look. And we were supposed to get started on 2017. Now we're sitting in fall 2018. It's ugly. And no money, and 4 meetings later. So I'm, you know, at some point, we're really gonna have to tie this up because it's worse than the G word.
Right. Well, this is because, so they're not trying to let this get commingled with the G word.
Well.
So they're waiting for this, because as angry as you are right now, imagine how that would look prior to Monday.
Exactly.
So they don't want that's part of the delay, in my opinion.
Okay, well, that's just my 3 cents.
Have you talked on this yet, Mr. Mascott?
No.
Okay, then
Okay.
you, then Ms. Shepherd.
To your point, I'm having the same thing, Marcy. Jalal has inserted himself in this and kind of taken away projects from Renew, which has been really interesting. I don't know if anybody
You
else.
need to speak up.
No.
Anybody else is, well, he's managing those projects now.
Managing the
Renew projects.
OEAM projects.
No, they were my district.
But they're your
Renew.
district ones.
They were my
Like
district
your
Renew
fire
projects.
department, he did my 2 firehouses.
Okay.
But he,
And he did a great job. But it's your district
over to
funds.
look
It was my district funds. They were Renew people. They were working on them. Nothing has happened for a year. And he's jumping in and trying to make something happen. So
Well, that's
I don't know if anybody else, I thought that was odd. I don't know if anybody else has had that.
and that's for
Okay,
sure.
Ms. Shepherd.
Well, I mean, from the beginning, maybe it's because you came in the middle, because originally your colleague, because from the beginning, OEAM always sat with us, just like Michelle, they had 2 divisions, but OEAM always sat with us from me from the beginning, as far as I know, to say, here's your projects for city-owned properties. And they actually went down the list, and we actually said, we're all in consensus, and this is what project's gonna get done. So now, and they have done several of them. I even went on a tour of mine to make sure that when they looked at them, when they first brought me the list, I looked at them and I said, I want this, I don't want this, no, we're not gonna do that. And we came up with a consensus of what was gonna be done, and then they gave us a budget for it and all of that. Now they've come back to me just last week and say, here's where we are, the project. They gave me an update, because I think what they're trying to do is based on the audit and everything, is trying to make sure that everything is up to date. So we're revisiting some, actually going out to Roselle Fan next week to revisit some and all of that, and say, they're saying, here's how much money's left, here's what we're gonna do. So they've always been involved, as far as I know, from the beginning, in terms of this. But let me ask another question. So if at the end, we don't have enough money left, then it is what it is, we'll just be out there, unless we do what Andres, I heard him say earlier, unless we do an extension after 2021 to complete, then what happens if, and it's quite obvious that we're not gonna have enough money, it seems like it here, it seems like it's gonna be, what happens?
It's up to the council to decide the policy. It seems to me, first you gotta know the extent of the problem. And then once you know that, it may be the pull the Band-Aid off exercise of cutting things off of the list, or saying that these things are not gonna be funded with that amount. I think if we don't get it to a point where we can get people, so we're not having promise meetings, but we're having actual get stuff done meeting, the trust of the public is not gonna be there for us to even go to them to ask them for more money or an extension or anything else.
Well, here's my last comment, is that, I mean, the more we do out there with the little money we got, community residents are saying, what about my street? What about this street? What about that? You did this street, you didn't do that one.
Yeah.
You put sidewalks on that one, why you didn't put them on this street? Why didn't you put them over here? You know, and, you know, I mean, I'm serious. I get so much argument on what we have done, people arguing with me and saying, well, I don't understand how that street got it, and I didn't get it, and why we didn't get it, you're just picking up. So it's just crazy, but I would tell you one of the biggest things that we hear all the time is sidewalks. Sidewalks, 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 sidewalks. So we've gotta do something about sidewalks one way or the other. So, that's it.
So let's go now to public safety. Mr. Hill.
So on the significant legislation, the first big pieces was the cash bail bond ordinance. It eliminated cash bail bond requirements for certain nonviolent, non-repeat offenses. And we've held 2 work sessions to review and discuss the legislation. And then it was adopted February 5th. And then subsequently, we received a report as mandated in the legislation from Chief Labatt and the courts, and some of that, some pretty obvious issues with that due to the computer hacking. They've lost some data, had to do a lot of things manually over at the courts. So I'm probably going to look to get a hopefully better update from them in the future. Shareable dockless mobility ordinance that is also in Transportation Committee that Andre spoke about. As he said, just rehashing. It's being held right now for public hearings scheduled for November 13th. And then following the recommendation in those committees, on November 14th, the anticipated adoption date will be November 19th. The amended Sunday drinking hours, which we've all probably, or most of us have been to the ballot box and seen, changes Sunday, so you can actually go have brunch on Sunday at 11 and have a mimosa. So this is called for that special election that again is on the ballot right now. And that was adopted on August 6th. Passed legislation that allocated an additional $1.5 million for code enforcement demolitions. And this was due to some money that had been sitting around in a fund that was still left over in the Planning and Buildings Department when code enforcement was under those departments. So what would happen, we would demolish buildings that were of course privately owned and place liens on those buildings, and then when those liens would get paid, they would get paid and put into this account, and that account was just kind of sitting there. So there was, and I had to get with finance on this to kind of understand, because it was a combination of watershed money and code enforcement money. So the 1.5 million is what we agreed to transfer initially, and so we'll probably revisit that to see how much money is left over in that account now. And there was some follow-up legislation to that. Apparently there were some account numbers missing or wrong in there, so that legislation, I believe, just either passed last council meeting or will be on Monday's agenda, just to make that correction to the account streams. Passed legislation amending the noise ordinance to provide for more stringent regulation regarding construction noise and to improve the application process for permits and temporary variances from those provisions. And that was adopted on August 20th. Another piece of legislation created the position of Public Safety Commissioner in the office of the mayor. It was dual referral to both PSLA and FEC, and so the Public Safety Commissioner position was actually created, but as many know, the mayor wished to have former Chief Turner in that position, and that was going to be paid for by the Hawks, which kind of looked to many of us looked bad, given that he's the brother of CIM, and there's no. I'm wearing a Hawk shirt today. That's no relation to this. So that is still being held. That part, the actual person filling the position, is still being held up in committee. Housing code violations.
Serving, or is he in?
Excuse me?
Does that mean he's not serving, or is he in?
No, because I believe that's actually still being held in FEC right now, isn't it? Howard?
I guess his
Yeah.
question is he working?
Is he working as the public safety commissioner?
Jason said he's.
Thank you, Ms. Hickson. Housing code violations. This legislation made housing code violations committed by corporate entities a civil violation because we have a lot of houses in the city of Atlanta, or I guess you could call them houses, former houses that are now falling in on themselves, owned by investors and LLCs, and they're difficult to track down. Two, when you do track them down and get them in the court, I mean, you can't throw an LLC in jail, obviously. So this changes it to a civil violation, which the notice and service requirements are much less. You just have to mail a certified letter. And then when they begin that process, it also would begin the process of the judicial interim. And this passed out of the last committee meeting favorably and unanimously, and will be on the consent agenda for November 5th. Final piece of legislation, significant legislation, was the nuisance animals and the ban of retail animal sales. These legislative items include revision from the noise ordinance of nuisance animals, and then that was kind of out of the noise ordinance when it was rewritten, and then this will allow, one, codifies it again, and two, allows for not only APD officers to enforce this, but also our Fulton County Animal Control officers to enforce. And then the other piece of legislation bans the retail sale of dogs and cats, which was kind of preemptive. If you watched the committee meeting or on the committee, so we had a lot of public commenters from Petland, who they do own some stores in the metro Atlanta region, and this was actually in the state legislature last year, and so they're afraid that they see Atlanta taking the lead on this, either the state or other municipalities in the metro area are going to follow suit, and of course would affect their business. So that's why I believe they showed up in force and voiced their opposition to the ban, but it passed unanimously, and it is also slated to be adopted at Monday's meeting. Some other accomplishments: had a handful of work sessions. We had the work sessions on the cash bail bond ordinance, the booting ordinance. We had 2 work sessions on that. The shareable dockless mobility device that was mentioned previously, in conjunction with the Transportation Committee. 2 work sessions have been held on that. And then we have an upcoming work session that was rescheduled from earlier in October. It's going to be held tomorrow to discuss animal services provided by Fulton County. Some other updates. September 4th, the committee arranged for the Office of Emergency Preparedness and APD to provide an update to the full council on planning efforts for the Super Bowl. And then on the 25th, Chief Labat provided an update, as I mentioned, on the implementation of the cash bail bond ordinance. And then we took a tour of the Atlanta City Detention Center on October 12th. And we did have a tour of the Fulton County Jail scheduled for October 30th, but was rescheduled due to the whole work session. Can't say the G word, so the work session for the whole. And then Some appointments, the committee provided a recommendation on approving the new chief of fire, Chief Slaughter, and city attorney, Ms. Hickson.
So I have the first one, and I guess it's goes to, I think, Mr. Baroque and Ms. I, that were the, two things. First one, the lead authors on the lobbying legislation. I think that you all forgot to include animals. That those effective lobbyists.
Except they weren't getting paid, so they don't have to wear a badge.
Very easily swayed.
Yeah.
The second one is on the cash bill, and just something to consider, because I did have a chance to meet with some of them about that, and I think there's more debate about the numbers and whether the time frame is representative of that, and just.
There's certainly more debate, as represented by our public comment a few meetings ago in our meeting that ran till
But I had this
almost 10 o'clock.
discussion with them after that. But sometimes when it kind of gets a little testy, I try to reach out to the people who are testy. And I think a reasonable in between would be if the committee, and I think it's reasonable, consider starting a new time frame. So you don't have the excuse of, well, there was a cyber attack or this or that or the other. Start the clock at a certain time, give it another 6 months or 3 months, whatever it is that you want to do, and then revisit it when you are sure that the courts are able to capture and not have issues. And then that way you can have, I think, a fuller discussion on data that somebody doesn't feel like it's skewed.
Right.
So that was my only point. Ms. Shepherd?
Well, I was gonna talk about the cash bail bonds too, and where I supported it, but one of the things is we're hearing from the court system, the FTAs.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, so the failure to appear is that, and from what I'm seeing, looking at numbers, because we don't have the data captured for, how many months with the cyber attack, it was about 3 months, is that the FTAs are going up as a result of the cash bail bond. And, you know, some of the people at the court system are saying that really it's a way for, and I got caught in between that. But the court system is saying these folks are not coming back to court. And of course, and then we have to go out there and find them. So there are some concerns. So I hear what you're saying in terms of us waiting, we're not going, I mean, we was at the tour of the court system. Who went? With Matt and I went. And you should see the boxes that they are manually trying to figure out how to true up all this data. It'll be months. I'm not sure what they're going to do.
Maybe we need to audit that.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. So to that point, we need to do something that really begin to reassess the cash bail bond thing, because we need to just do a whole nother assessment of it.
Mr. Webb wanted to respond.
Forrest Webb. I just want to offer some additional information that we're experiencing in the clerk's office. We have a
Come over out this way, so because you make sure, or near Dustin, so you're near the mic. Yeah, right there.
We're receiving a huge influx of telephone calls and emails related to individuals trying to determine what their court date is. In addition to that, attorneys are sending these emails, as well as paralegals. I've reached out to the chief judge as recent as last week to bring this to his attention. And his deputy clerk, she contacted me. And what most of these individuals are telling me, because they're calling my direct line. They said all of a sudden we see a name of a person we can call. So they're calling me and emailing me directly in addition to the office. They're telling me when we call the courts, we can't speak to anybody. Mm-hmm. And subsequently, we can't work through any issues or concerns that we have. And Ms. Dixon, who is one of the deputies over there, she advised me as of last Friday through our conversation that the courts have contracted with entered into an agreement with 311 that they'll facilitate their phone calls. Well, the issue that may arise there is that I'm suspecting that 311 is directing a lot of the phone calls to my office. So I just wanted to offer that as far as some of the peripheral things that may be occurring, and I don't know if that's impacting the FTAs. And if it was just citizens, it's one thing, but I'm getting a lot of phone calls from individuals who are attorneys.
And I'll just add that I've gone, just been going around, I know a few shop owners and people, every time I came in there, they received some sort of ticket or citation, and they are still, and this is months later, not able to figure out when they're supposed to come to court. And they can't get any answers. Ms. Ives?
Yeah, I'll say along those same lines, I've talked to Judge Portis and the solicitor about it for several constituents, and then I actually was trying to figure out a ticket for my dad, and they are so far behind of getting it in the system that there are a lot of FTAs happening because the tickets aren't getting in the system and people aren't knowing what their court date is. So I think there's a lot of noise still there, hack related,
Yes.
that might be difficult to know what's the bail bond issue and what's.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
got a room, and I know, Andre, we went year before last, you should see what they have since this last
Oh, yeah, I
year.
went the other day.
Oh my God, they got rooms and rooms and rooms
Yeah.
of boxes, and we're saying, y'all need to hire somebody.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
you
I don't
gonna-
know how they're managing all
how
of
you
that,
all
it's
gonna get
crazy.
through all of this?
But, so a lot of people are getting failure to appears because they get a ticket, they wait, the police officer says, look online, you'll see it, and it doesn't go online, doesn't go online.
And some of them go to the court
Yeah.
and find out they can't do anything about it.
Yeah. So it's just still a mess over there.
Mr. Dickens?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that what you were saying is not just FTA related, but it's due to the cyber attack. They were down for like 6 months. The courts were the furthest behind in terms of having to, their computers just didn't get back up until a certain, a long time, which leaves all these boxes. So we have to determine what's truly related to the no cash bond or what's related to the cyber attack. But Judge Portis did create this new commission, this task force. It's called the Municipal Courts, something of Atlanta Task Force, and Dustin, Andre, and I are on it to give our input about, just these very issues. So I think one of the issues, they said they got 311 because the courts do not have someone that's just sitting there answering the phone day and night. So 311 is supposed to help them, but I don't know if 311 have the information to help them. And they have a court clerk and there's a U clerk. And I think that they just hit the clerk button, or people just say clerk, and it goes, huh?
They don't listen.
Right.
We can make the determination in 3 seconds.
Well,
So-
it's hit the clerk button that's gonna answer the phone and respond.
Yeah.
Hit the other button and nobody's gonna answer.
Right, and you're getting it because you got clerk in your title, so that's something that I'll take back to them to correct, because we do not want you to be a part of that system, especially for lawyers, professionals. They need to have their own way of going about that, so I'll relay that message to them. Don't mean it's gonna be fixed, I just said I'm gonna relay the message.
Anything else on public safety? Okay, Community Development, Human Services Committee, Ms. Archibald.
Okay, everybody would turn to page, almost the last one in your binder. You will see our report, we started, thank you, sir. Start off in the first section, sort of describing the goals. All the committees have goals and objectives, and just as a benchmark, we established 22 goals. We focused on affordable housing, community engagement activities, and areas related to parks. Of the 22 objectives, we have endorsed legislation and initiatives supporting 15 of those, so we're about 70% complete with our objectives for this year, but this, of course, is an ongoing process. In terms of legislative highlights, we've considered and approved 141 pieces of legislation. We have about 16 still held for review and consideration in the future. Some of the highlights include approved $5.1 million for HUD Section 8 housing reimbursement to facilitate affordable housing projects under the Home Investment Partnership Fund. We have approved legislation granting over $30 million for the 2017-2018 housing opportunity for people with AIDS or HOPWA projects. We've approved $2.4 million in grant funding for workforce development agency doing business as WorkSource Atlanta. We've authorized acquisition of a little under 4 acres, mainly for District 6, and the smaller portion for District 3 for that Katherine Johnston Memorial Park. We approved legislation amending the city code to require that affordable housing impact statements be attached to any proposed legislation which may impact the city's housing stock, including rezoning cases. I think this bleeds over into some other committees of purview. We found out that the impact statements are not just a CDHS issue. Some things happen in finance and other committees as well. There's an important item that, in terms of discussion today, we do have an item. But first, let me say that on November 27th, at our committee meeting, we will have 2020 Census Regional Office will come and provide us with an update of the upcoming census. So if you have questions or concerns, that again will be at our November 27th meeting. We also have on November 6th a work session with WorkSource Atlanta. They've been in the news quite a bit, and we've heard some of the concerns from colleagues over the past year or so relative to this agency. November 6th, 10 a.m. will be a work session with WorkSource Atlanta. But the legislative item that is being held that I thought might be interesting for us to consider and think about is we do have an opportunity to, this is relative to an intergovernmental agreement with Invest Atlanta. We have had Mr. Forrest and Mr. Pace trying to do a historical review, right? What did the Invest Atlanta IGA look like in years past? Well, it's been an interesting exercise. Mr. Forrest, you want to tell us what you found out? We got to move the microphone up there. Just come stand by her.
In the research that I've done, I've reached out to Invest Atlanta. What I was advised is that from 2009 going back, there wasn't a requirement for an IGA. I've since confirmed that as of today with the city attorney here in the city of Atlanta to see if that was an authentic response, which I felt that it was, because the individual that I spoke to was Roz Rubens.
Can't hear you that good. Can you speak up?
I'm sorry, the individual that I reached out to was Roz Rubens, who's a former City of Atlanta deputy city attorney. So I felt the information was valid, but I just wanted to further validate that information with the city attorney. And what I have received today are copies of two agreements, one from 2013 and one from 2012, which are executed agreements, and I'll make sure that everyone receives that as well, just for information purposes in the event that you don't have them. Because typically it is challenging to get a hard copy of an executed agreement, which is different from the agreement that may be attached to the legislation in general. So, and we don't maintain them in the clerk's office.
And that, he said a lot with that, because a lot of times we will authorize a contract and we don't know what happens later on, or who is the custodian of it, or so it's just interesting and enlightening to find out that he's not the custodian of it, and neither was the law department. It was Invest Atlanta, the receiving or the agency that was the subject of the agreement. So we probably could use a little primer on that so we can keep up with where accountability and documentation of that accountability reside. So for us, and thank you, Mr. Webb. So for us, we have a document on hold that we can look at an opportunity of putting some meat on the bone, so to speak, what we've done historically, okay, but what do we want to do prospectively? And there's some areas where the TAS and different bond obligations are already going to direct what happens with Invest Atlanta, but in those spaces where we can do more and require more, I would like for this council to take a serious look at that. I don't know if you want to do a work session to sort of talk about those spaces where we can do more. I think in terms of setting priorities, the reporting requirements, as I may have already said, and I think as we look at the G word, and by the way, we had 3 or 4 work sessions out of this committee to talk about the G word. But as we learn things about questions that have arisen in this process, you know, there is possibly room for council to do more of the question around who authorized this expenditure and how much money was allocated and who did you talk to and get permission from to do that. So I do think this is a ripe opportunity for us to do where we can, what we can around directing our economic development agency.
Okay, Ms. Shepherd?
Well, I'm you know, the investor land thing, are we going to, Madam Chair, this IGA, is that going to be discussed as a part of our committees in terms of whatever the process is?
We can talk about it as a committee, or we can have a work session, and that would allow for more input from the
I think a work session would be really good.
Is it in dual referred to finance as well?
Is it?
Because they usually come, yes, I believe so. So I think it needs to be a joint work session.
Thanks.
So right now, they're on hold for.
And it's expired, but you know.
But in terms of their funding, the fiscal year was starting from July to, so are we giving them money? We're still giving them their money. But we're saying going forward, we're gonna have an IGA agreement. So coming up.
It's time to update the IGA that we have with
It's
them
expired.
Okay.
It expired, and this is an opportunity since it's expired to kind of refresh and put more meat on the bones, as I've said.
So you didn't say anything about the Mayor's Office of Film.
No, I didn't. It's on here. I didn't want to read everything for.
So they're coming before us for a work session also, right?
No, this is just like a report.
Presenting at the committee meeting.
Right.
Okay, because I do have some questions about that, but I'll hold that for that because I just don't think that they're doing. I just think that some of these departments and stuff, they're in the silo. They just kind of. They under the radar. What are they doing? I tell you another that I'm concerned about that I'll request is the Bureau of Cultural Affairs in terms of what they do, in terms of their money and funding. Both, I think we need to understand where they get their money from, who make decisions in terms of how they allocate it, all of that. So Bureau of Cultural Affairs and the Film Commission, I do have some questions around that.
Good. Anything else? Okay, we move on to City Utilities Committee, Mr. Mascot. Masakai.
He drank some of Howard's alcohol.
She's been waiting on morning to drop that.
Mr. Muhammad. All right, so some things that we've done. We've done some street renaming. Carla, Confederate Avenue, yay. Also Eva Davis Way. So that's great. And Dustin helped out with some legislation that changed some of the hours for solid waste, which is going to be, leads into the next one, which is going to be incorporated into the solid waste rate increases. That is coming before you Monday, and hopefully some of the folks from that department have come and met with you. Do I see head nods of people?
They said you were going to come meet with all of us.
Well, I'll give you the quick 2-second. But hopefully they have reached out to you and given you some information. Just the quick highlights. Those rates haven't been changed in 14 years since 2004. We really need, as I know a lot of you have had experience with missed pickups for solid waste, trash. It was a pretty bad situation this summer before we ordered some trucks. This is going to put us on a path to getting that solved and being able to have enough money to buy trucks and have the crews. So that's good. One of the things we wanted to focus on is making sure that we're charging residents the fees for the services that they are receiving and charging commercial folks for the services they're receiving. The residential rates are really going to be very, very modest increases, $9 on average. So your residents should be pretty happy. The commercial rates are a little bit of a different story. They're going up
pretty significantly. Although if you look in the last 14 years, it just would have been about equal to the CPI. So it's a big percentage, but it's been a lot of years since they've been increased. We've been working with the commercial community to, one, be sure that they don't start to get charged for things that the city isn't prepared to offer. And so these fees aren't going to go into effect for them until April of next year. So that'll be good, and that's when the city can commit to providing the increase in the services. And I think it's a great thing. We've all been upset about the lack of regular mowing in the right-of-way and pickups, and so they are committing to a pretty significant increase in the level of services, which is good. So that's going to hit on Monday, and hopefully y'all are comfortable with that. If not, yell and we can get you more information. The one other thing, there is a vacant lot fee, which is $500, and that's something new. You may hear a little bit about that, but there's and if you, I think Carla had a great amendment to that she put forward. Yes.
Both sides.
Yeah. I think that was really good. That if you are a homeowner who has a vacant lot attached to it,
Contiguous to your property.
then you're
Like, you know, you have those neighbors and you didn't realize it was a vacant lot. If you think they're a double lot, and they've got the most meticulous grass. I got one down the street from me, and they're all over. I had no idea how many people until this thing happened. So I'm gonna make it like $150, $200 if it's attached, and they have to go to Fulton County and get their own exemption. So we don't have to go out there looking for them. So that means it's really people that are involved. They are, you know, Atlantans.
Now, these people, they own that lot, but if it's contiguous, do they actually own the lot?
It's like you have your house, but your house is.
You have double lot.
Okay, so it's a double lot.
Right.
Okay.
If that lot touches your main homestead exemption house.
Okay, and it's your lot.
Where you live, and you've been maintaining it all these years, because y'all, I got a few I got one that's got like flower gardens, we could get on Google Maps and I could show y'all several. But anyway, then on the other hand, I'm gonna do another one where if you've got a code violation, you won't pay $1,000. So, because I gotta figure out how to make that up. So, instead of just the 500, if you got a crappy lot that has never, and you've been to court and, you know, then once we, you know, with the court system, then they need to start getting charged $1,000 a year instead of just 500. And then that'll make up for my people with their, because I'm trying to do both sides. I will make those amendments Monday.
Yep. Great.
And I've already given them to the administration.
Great.
And I sent them to you, and now I'm talking about it here.
I thought it's
so
been
maybe
some
we'll just whip it out.
good additions. Howard, do you have a comment on that?
You know, never mind.
You sure?
Well, go ahead and talk now, and then we want to talk Monday.
I don't want to.
All right. Yeah, so a couple of other things that we've worked on but are on hold. The Clean Energy Plan, they came and talked to us, and that was passed last year, I believe, as a resolution to have the city of Atlanta be 100% clean energy. They're coming back, and so that's going to resurface, and we'll take that up in the future. The other one that we have spent a lot of time with that is laying low, but I think will resurface, is the public access channel operator.
It's not calling that name that way. It's been quiet.
It has been quiet, but we've been working on that, and Joyce and I have been having a lot of fun with that. And the other is the Water and Sewer Appeals Board. We've had a lot of good work on that. I do think there are a couple of open slots on that, so we'll be pushing for you to get some nominations in, and we'll let you know on that. So those are the things that we've done and are continuing to do.
Anything else on city utilities, Ms. Archibald? So you talked about
And that's holding up our tax bills, right?
It's a separate, it's not a tax bill, but it's a separate bill that'll be mailed out likely at the end of November.
They're not mailing out tax bills.
No, it's not. It's separate from a tax bill.
The sanitation bill we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yes, separate.
Yeah.
separate.
Oh, I remember Atlanta.
Yeah.
They're not mailing out tax bills in DeKalb County until this is settled.
Oh. Okay, but that's DeKalb County.
Yeah. That have a bunch of things. Right.
Huh.
So I'm
That's
not-
news to me. Well, thank you for.
A bunch of people.
Okay, interesting.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
That takes care of it.
But they said they're gonna mail out, they're telling residents they're gonna, November, they have their bills by November.
Sometime in
But I
November,
think
yeah.
what the Dodge Bomb says is good, we need to look at how this is affecting DeKalb County.
Excellent.
And we can always look
Thank
to
you.
her to give us that.
So we're waiting with, okay, anxious to get that sanitation thing resolved.
Yep, Monday.
Go ahead, Mr. Master.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Master. That's a good. Okay, so, we're gonna keep moving so we can maybe get out of here early. I'm gonna start with the easy stuff and rev up with more controversial stuff. So I'm gonna turn it over to my staff to talk about holiday festivities for this year and, proposed open house.
Are there prizes?
Sweaters.
We win. We're tied. That's a joke, Nina. Yeah. I know. They hadn't learned anything.
So I'm gonna talk about
I don't think she found
Thanksgiving.
that funny.
Not a funny joke, I guess. Too soon. Too soon.
Council staff, we wanted to, I talked with Theo, and talked with Theo, and so on the 19th of November will be the last council meeting for November, and so right before Thanksgiving, and so we want to have lunch for the staff and for council and staff on the 19th, right before council meeting. So from 11 to noon, we'll have lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you can do things.
You gotta speak up this way.
Oh, okay. All right, and so for Christmas then, Miss Archibald and I had gone over right across the street, literally, to the Trinity United Methodist Church, and they've got a program there that is, it's for women and children. It's like 27 beds, and they had some needs. We were really impressed with the program. We thought, I think they stay for, it's a transitional home, so it's not that they're homeless, but they are literally transitioning into trying to get permanent housing. They stay for about 5 or 6 months, and so I thought that was really, the turnover was really, really, I think, nice. Of course, they've experienced a influx of folk now since the other housing facilities are closed. But anyway, they had expressed the need for some items. These are some pretty different than the ones they had expressed when we were over there. But these now are the ones that they are needing. And so we just kind of took the liberty of going through and by council district and council office, kind of breaking it out to how you guys agree that we want to do it to support this mission.
So, of course, us fellowshipping as clerk's office, research office, and council office, but also making sure that, we serve others as well. Does anybody have any objections to our participating in this year and doing it? Okay, so that's good. The next one is about the potential for the open house.
Yeah, and Kathy's gonna.
So I will speak to the open house. The council president's office would like to take the lead in coordinating an open house for council to kick off the new year. And what we'd like to do is make sure that this effort focuses on there's a lot of good work that happens in council, but it's not always the good work that is discussed or that's highlighted. So as an effort to start taking control of our own narrative, bringing the public in to some degree and allowing them to understand how we really operate and the degree of work that goes into being a council member, committee chair, attending all the meetings, doing all that you do is really what the open house will be about. And we wanted to get any feedback that you all would have. Is it something that you all would support and engage in? It also gives the city an opportunity and citizens an opportunity to see the work that your staff has to perform. So that's really what the open house would be about, and we just wanted to get your feedback as to whether or not you would be supportive and participate in it. If so, we will be happy to take the lead and coordinate with you over the next several weeks.
And the idea is similar to the open house that you do when you go visit your kids at school. You'd be surprised how many people have not even actually seen our offices. It would be a time and space where we would be there, we'd be in the offices, and we'd welcome citizens and just allow them to be able to see kind of where we operate, what we do, and come and talk to you about particular issues for a time frame. But this is one way of us being more open to the community that we serve, and then allowing them, again, an opportunity to come and see where you serve from, because many people have never even been at their council offices. So I'd love to have some feedback. That's something that people will be interested in. If you don't want to do it, your office would be closed, hopefully. You wouldn't do that, but I hope everybody would have their office open and just be there for a couple hours and, you know, receive whomever from the public would choose to come visit us.
I don't want Ron Shakir in my office.
He's gonna be the first in line. He's gonna.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna say, go to Mr. Shook's office first.
Did you hear about Brother Muhammad being upset with you and calling all of our staff people yesterday?
Yeah,
me?
my staff person told me.
What?
He went out there just crazy. I'm sorry.
Okay, well,
He's upset with me.
All of them.
okay, no, he's talking to everybody, but let me just do it this way. Is there anyone that has an objection to us trying to coordinate something like that?
What day?
We're talking about sometime in January, so sometime the first of the year. Okay.
Would it be, I mean, are you talking about for a whole day or?
No, it'll be just maybe a couple hours or something during a period of time, perhaps an
During public
evening.
comment.
Perhaps in the evening, you know, so that people can't say, you had it in the middle of the day, we couldn't come, maybe at 6 to 8 p.m. We haven't gotten that far, we just wanted to make sure people were.
And then you go get refreshments, right?
I mean, yeah, and each office, you can do, each office can do what they choose. You can give something or you cannot. It's up to you.
No, that's sacred. It's sacred ground.
Okay. So anything else on that? Ms. Archibald, shh.
So, I think we are the most forward-facing part of the, you know, elected official space in government, right? So I think people know where we are. I don't think that that's an anomaly. So are we trying to say this is what my desk looks like?
No, we're trying to say that we are opening the public's house to the public, and this is an opportunity for you to come and engage your council.
I noticed when the mayor had her open house or whatever it was after she won an election, I don't think they went back in her office. They were kind of in the atrium. So, not to say how it's pointed and well taken, because I think it is. Is there something we could do besides have them walk behind our?
What's the problem with that?
What? What's the what?
She was saying in the atrium versus them being able to come back and see where our office is.
For the reasons that we're hearing.
And, you know, again,
I didn't hear those reasons.
What was the
we have
reason?
committee rooms, we've got the chamber, we've got the old council chamber, so there are ways to work around some of your concerns about coming back.
I mean,
and
maybe there are certain offices that people, you don't want them to come in your office, but I don't think
that looks
that's
bad. That looks bad to have this one's a blackout, this one is come on in here. So I'm just trying, I'm trying to
Well, do you
understand
all
the
have
idea.
concerns with them coming back in the council's office space? I mean,
Well-
you're expressing it, so I'm
No,
trying.
I was listening to what they were saying, and I just thought.
What
I
did
would
they
go
say?
with-
Who was
Who
that?
said it? If nobody said it, then I'm.
It was us.
We just gotta
It
roll
was
his
over
cart
here.
into the mailroom.
Yeah, it was us.
Okay, what did
It was
y'all,
us. It
what
was
did y'all
us.
say?
And I've got my thing on,
Okay.
so I'll add on as soon as she's finished.
The only other thing I was gonna say is if we're gonna do, one of the big concerns I hear from the public is around parking. So yes, ride MARTA, Bird, walk, whatever. But if you're
Bird's
gonna
crazy,
park, can we do
crazy.
free parking? That's
Yeah,
all,
I
that's all I was
agree with
gonna say.
Okay.
And Ms. Smith?
All right, well, I will say, okay, you're talking about, they're gonna be in the conference room, they're gonna be here, they're gonna be there. I mean this nice, but we are gonna have to clean our desk off, and we're gonna run into I'm gonna come back to my office, because I was down in the conference room having a cocktail, and my desk is gonna have been gone through. Or my computer's gonna be turned on. Or, so, it is kind of a little bit of a violation. Okay, well, I just thought I was talking, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Let me,
have the floor.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
go ahead, go ahead.
Where's our parliamentary?
Ms. Smith has the
We
floor.
didn't extend his contract.
Come on, everybody, so we
Go
can.
ahead, Carla, finish.
Please go
I'm
ahead.
just saying, are we gonna have enough babysitters? Because I can tell you, all of my staff people, they're not gonna come. Cheryl will come, but I don't know if my other two are gonna come. So that's gonna make me have to stay down and watch our little area and greet people. I won't be able to go to the room down there. I mean, are we gonna,
It'll be organized.
I mean, then we could organize tours where we have facilitate, where we just walk them through. I mean, first of all, the concept is what we want you to.
That's what I'm talking
And then we
about.
can come back to
I'm
you
looking at
with some
Kathy.
recommendations.
I
that
just
may-
don't wanna come back to my office after I've gone and Cheryl's off talking to somebody and somebody is sitting, or my desk drawers are open.
Okay.
I just don't want that to happen. Not that my pens are like super valuable, I buy these kind, but it's just, it's kind of, it could get creepy.
Okay. Well, we'll take that. And our next step will come back with some more
Brother Muhammad.
detailed recommendations so that you all can see that, and we will take that into account to better manage it. Yes.
We can make sure we have adequate.
You never know.
Ms. Shepherd?
Well, you know, I've kind of did that with my community ongoing. I mean, you know, when we had the inauguration, I invited residents from my community to the inauguration. And when they finished, they came back, they sat in my office, I gave them refreshments, I entertained them, and they was like, oh, so we never knew this is where your office is and this is where you sit. And for me, it's helpful because a lot of time our residents think that, a lot of them think we're just sitting around doing nothing downtown in City Hall every day. I think it's a great idea for them to understand the magnitude of what we do, because I'm amazed that citizens call me, well, you're never in, and, you know, and where are you, and, you know, how much we paying you, and I'm just like, you know what, y'all need to come and walk in my shoes a couple of days and then see what I do down here. So I don't have no problem when they come and they see my desk piled up with stuff. That's what that tells you, that you're working. Well, for me it does. And so I don't have no problem with this, because I let them know this is what happens to me every day. And so I don't have any problems with it. I think my staff, people will enjoy it. It's so different, let me just say, different council members have different ways of how they look at things. For me, I think it's a welcome way for citizens to see your council person in action instead of seeing you just out there in the abstract and not knowing what happens down at City Hall every day.
Ms. Overstreet?
Yeah, I don't mind either. I just want you to know that in July, I had, you know, meet your council member day in my office. So, and I said I would do that twice a year. So I don't really mind. Just letting you know.
Ms. Archibald, and then I'll keep moving.
So what happened during how was it? What
Several
happened?
people came in. Like,
How many?
I gave out T-shirts, like four in one day. I gave out T-shirts if they came out.
We're gonna get more than that.
And-
We're gonna get gathered.
Yeah, but you have to call and make an appointment though, you know, that day. They have to make an appointment. So we'll know what to expect. But, you know, they all say they wanna come. I gave them a day, just to see. And, you know, it's not easy. I certainly didn't pay for parking, like, you know. Like, who just said free parking?
If we do it for everybody, for the whole council, OAM can allow us to have parking free that day.
Okay.
We can work on that.
Okay, well, I don't mind.
Ms.
We
Hicks?
also work with OEAM on security as well.
Okay.
Okay, now you're
Ms. Hicks
speaking
and,
my language.
I just wanted to support what you were saying in terms of security issues. You all are thinking about your nice constituents who care about what's going on. I'm thinking about opposing counsel who would be glad to come and look and rifle through your desk and find out.
I'm not
things. As long as
everybody
y'all
not in my
handle-
office.
All I'm
I'm
saying
just-
is just
ain't
handle
no office.
it so that
No.
sensitive stuff isn't
I'm gonna be in my
out.
office, somebody's gonna be in my office.
Just handle it so sensitive stuff is not out. People can't, nowadays you take pictures and all that. That's all I'm saying, just
Real
real
quick,
quick.
snip, snip, and you got it.
All right, so I wanna, just a
Find that
couple
renewal
things. And I know it's taken a little longer than first anticipated, and that's because I prefer the draft be correct than just to throw something out there. But I am still working on the compliance officer and office, as I talked about. And we're still working on that. Hopefully, it would be nice to have it done by the end of the year. If we get it right by the end of the year, then I will be getting the draft to people so that they can look at it. If not, first of next year for sure. The other thing on the list, well, that wasn't on the list, but it just reminded me I hadn't updated you all on that. Resource budget for special projects for FY 1920. Just as the council, and it's up to you all policy-wise, but I do think it would be behoove the council to begin to think about when we have a budget, to have some money in the budget that would allow you, as a council, when you have a need for independent review of something or an expert in something or whatever, that we have it available so that we can use it. Because a lot of times, I'm seeing now that people have an interest sometimes in getting somebody to review things for the council standpoint, and it would be helpful for you all just to put that in your thought processes. Now, I'll leave it at that at this point. I don't know, we didn't do any particular research, did we, on how much, but I just think that that's something the council might need to look at for future budgets. Because we do heavily rely on the administration for information, but I think for the check and balance purposes, it's good for the council to have some of its own information.
Are you talking about lawyers or?
Well, it could be for whatever you need.
Oh, like you was talking about the lobbyists, I think one point.
Well, I'm getting ready to talk about that now, but I'm just talking about, it could be for something else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what, it may be a particular policy issue that you might want a particular expert to review something that is coming from the administration, or review something that the council wants to do to develop a legislation. I don't have any parameters on what that is. I'm just saying, if the council doesn't have a pot of money that they can go to, for instance, like when we did the parliamentarian, instead of trying to figure out where that money was coming from, it was just fortunate that there was the excess carry forward money from the previous council president, that I said, okay, if you all do this, here's where that money can come from, and you all allocated that money for a parliamentarian. I'm just saying it's good to have money available in the event.
And you're gonna make a recommendation where we're gonna get the money from too, right?
No, what I'm recommending
Yeah,
that
okay,
the council
okay.
consider it,
Mm-hmm.
and when the council submits its budget to go for the
Okay.
next year, that it would be budgeted
Okay.
into the budget. That's why I'm kind of getting ahead of these
Okay,
things.
okay.
I got it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, I think that's a great idea, and I was just gonna say, all the rumors I'm hearing about the economic downturn, I hope that we'll look at an economist. Stop telling that to our finance people.
Okay.
So the next one is, and I'll go to that because it's in the similar vein, lobbying discussion, and whether or not the council as a whole, and particularly maybe is this pot of money or others might want to look at that for the state legislation. So as you all know, we've had the issue related to the airport. And for me, for a variety of reasons, became top priority. I really, really do not want to see our airport being taken over in any way, whether it's on the minimum level where they come up with some oversight committee, or on the more extreme level of taking the airport. And so I took that on personally as something that I was really interested in. Well, quickly to find out that as you start to circulate in the state arena, it's almost like going to the jungle. And you need a guide to make sure you don't get eaten up by the lions and tigers and bears. I did have some reach out to the administrative side about coming together, trying to figure out what the whole strategy was. Didn't really get any response from that. So what I did was able to pull some lobbyists that my office has funded out of my council expense account to sort of help me navigate this study committee that's been going on for the 3 months. And that will end at the end of this year. And so that has been extremely helpful. And one, I get sort of the behind the scenes update, what people are thinking, whom are the people. I had already, before I engaged them, had already started talking to people, getting the good introductions with people, being able to really figure out what is going on behind the scenes or other things that are impacting it. It's been a wealth of information. My staff has taken on, Mrs. Casanova has been sending you updates after every time that we've gone, links, that kind of thing. But I think on the go forward now, I've been on council for 20 years, so I know this to be true, so I'm making a statement based on experience. The city, and particularly the administration, Ms. Middleton has been it for a while, but there have been others, the lobby piece. And we have the legislative package, but my experience has been some of the initiatives that we put in that legislative package that the council wants may take second nature to some of the things that the mayor may want. Frankly, there have been times when there are things that the mayors have wanted, and it's not this one in particular, this has gone through, that we don't even know about, that they go off and do it. So for the veteran members, how many of you, and I think you've been on finance as many times I have, knew that we were over there lobbying for enterprise zone for the G word? Didn't know that. So what I'm saying is we need to make sure that some of those issues are being addressed. I think the person who can give a perfect example of that may be Ms. Shepherd, because she was, I'm not gonna say a one woman, but she definitely took it on about the issue regarding the tire dumping and that kind of thing, and really worked with the state legislators, worked with the people to get that done. It wasn't necessarily, we might have got some help, but it wasn't that. So what I'm trying to say is, in this legislative package, there are things that are focused, that council wants to see happen, and there are things that everybody wants to see happen, but we are subject to what the mayor chooses as a priority in those interests. And then when we get the reports, sometimes we get legislative updates, sometimes we don't, because Ms. Middleton may be in all of the meetings or focusing on what somebody tells her to focus on. And I really think that the council should, I'd really like to see us step it up a level and think about having someone that works on behalf of the council to move some of the initiatives and to bird dog some of the things that the council has an interest in, so that we are not kind of not knowing what's going on over there on things that we care about versus things that are the administrative branch priorities. So that, Ms. Shepherd, I'm going to go with you.
Well, I will have to say that I'm going to join you on this one, because I would tell you there has been scenarios where me working with GMA and also just going through the state, I have a great relationship, and I just want to thank also our state.
Speak up.
Our state representative, Pat Garner. She's did an excellent job. Last year was one of the best I've seen of keeping us plugged into. She was having meetings almost every other week, and inviting us to those meetings in terms of what was going on at the state level. It was just you know, come to a meeting and you sit it and you just come and you sit there and you hear things, it's like, I didn't know we were doing that. I told Natalie about a situation with the Beltline what was that? That was they were create their own
SSD or whatever.
SSD something. And I'm like, okay, the Beltline was there because they had their legislative person there sitting in the room.
Ms. Johnson.
Literally lobbying for this. And I'm like, did we vote this up as a council? Did this even come through our committee?
They didn't even know about it. They said
as
they're
a
not gonna do that
council?
again. They promised they won't do it again.
They promised they would.
They won't do that again.
Well, but what I'm saying is there's not and I'm not sure if there's a process with the Beltline, because I'm finding out sometimes the Beltline is in their own world too, just like a lot of these different departments are. And this is no reflection on you, Ms. Mills, but to that point, I agree with Ms. Moore. Sometimes our legislative package, if it's the mayor's priority, they're gonna pump it. Then we have all these lobbyists who are gonna make sure that happens. You know, and I'm not saying that this new mayor's gonna do it, but if it's not a priority of the mayor, sometimes the chances of it becoming something that is relevant in terms of our particular issues, as you say, will be put down the back. And if you don't wind up having somebody, like I got entrenched at the tower thing, and a lot of people at the state that says, you know what, I'm gonna have to carry my own weight over there. So I go and find people over at the state representatives, even crossing the aisle sometimes. Sometimes when I go to GMA, my purpose of going to GMA is not just to go down there, but I find some Republicans and other folks, and we got the same common thing in together, so that when we go to the state, I can say, can you work, we work on this together, and we'll push it from a state position. Because if you're waiting on sometime but to be pushed there, and sometimes that's the best way to do it, sometime anyway, because you get a lot more consensus in terms of that. So, but what I'm saying is, and I want to say something, and I want to say I want to thank Ms. Hickson also, because as a new lawyer, she really does seem to cross the aisle and really try to represent us fairly. But I would tell you, I'm not sure if that's happened with all of her staff either. And so when and going back to this culture that has been created with the mayor, is that we are separate entities, and that even though technically on paper it says that you're supposed to represent all, I just don't see that happening yet. I'm still waiting on that to happen up under the new mayor, and that may change as we go. But I do have concerns about that in terms of when you get over there in terms of lobbying, you know, if it's something, and we as a council have the right to say, even the mayor may disagree with what we're lobbying for, but have a right to put it on there. But at the end of the day, if the mayor's office is actually paying for this, are they really pushing it over there on that side? And how do we track that to make sure that's happening? And again, this is no reflection on Mayor Bottoms or anybody else, but I just, in terms of transparency and what's right, I'm really concerned about that.
And I think it's not just reflective on this administration. Again, it's been since I've been a council member. I don't care who the mayor's been. It's always been heavily weighted that way, and the things, so that's why some of these things are perpetually on our legislative agenda and they never get moved, because it was some idea that the council member had and it just doesn't get moved. And I really think the council can have that direction. The other thing I would hope Finance Executive Committee can do, because I bet nobody around this table can answer the question, how many lobbyists do we have for the city? Federal, state, local, or federal, state, or any otherwise? How much are we paying them? How much money, does anybody know how much money we spend on lobbying?
You know, we used to, now this has been a long time ago, we don't have them now, but we used to have some lobbyists before 2008 that went up to you remember?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't. That's what I'm just saying, that we have, and I'll ask finance to get it, unless Ms. Middleton knows it off the top of her head, the amount of money, but we spend a significant amount of money we have DC lobbyists, we have lobbyist firms for the state, and then we have individuals. I think it's a list of 6 or 8 different individuals that we pay to lobby. And when we were talking about reports earlier, when we want the report from, I love that, from the little guy, the parliamentarian, when have y'all gotten a report from any of the lobbyists that are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars from the city to lobby on the city's behalf.
Who are the companies? I remember the company from a long time ago, but
Mr. Schiff, do you know?
No, but we're gonna we'll run it to ground.
Okay. So, you know who the federal lobbyists are?
Yes, so the federal lobbying contract is with Holland and Knight, and a separate lobbying contract for the state is also with Holland and Knight, but it's a different group.
And how many individuals are we paying to lobby?
In the federal contract, there are 3 on staff with Holland and Knight and 2 subcontractors. With the federal contract, there are 4 Holland and Knight lobbyists and 2 subcontractors.
And how many state individual lobbyists?
That's it.
There was a list of several people that were being paid as lobbyists for the city. Do I need to start naming some names?
We had a one, like a like a session only contract with a company called Connect South. They're based here in Georgia. They have 5 lobbyists, I believe, work for that firm, but 1 was our go-to. So the firm was paid.
So we have them, but I've seen a list, and it was reported in the paper, of individual people that are paid under the $20,000 threshold to lobby. And then some of our department, what does Mr. Highsmith lobby for?
So he is the lead lobbyist on the state level with Holland and Knight. He's a partner at Holland and Knight.
Okay, all right. But we do have some individuals. You're not aware of them, or do I need to
Some
get
people
you
were
this?
listed in that article earlier this year as individuals, but they were, like, I had 2 staff members, and they were listed individually. They were city of Atlanta employees.
But they were working in your office?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but there was about 8 people.
It may be because they listed, the way they listed them in the article from the firms, that it appeared individual, but even though those people fell under the firm, I truly don't.
So you're saying those 8 people, or 6 of the 8, or whatever, they work for Holland and Knight, and they weren't getting paid individually?
It's possible, yeah. I'd like to see those names again, but I don't, I mean, truly, that's.
Do you know?
Yeah, Ms. Casanova, do you remember, were those people paid into, because you showed me that list as well?
I didn't make a list of all the current.
You gotta speak up.
I made a list of all the current COA lobbyists that we have. I don't have it with me, but I'll.
You don't have it with you?
tomorrow.
Go on and get it.
It was on the website.
It's on the city's website, who's registered lobbyists for the city, that's what we got.
So are we, so are those contracts yearly? So are those the same ones we're going forward with this year also?
So, yes, they're off by a year and a half. I'll just take it from, so the state lobbying contract went into effect September of 2017. It's a 3-year base, with 2-year renewal options. The federal lobbying contract went into effect, I believe it was December of 16, also a 3-year base with 2 1-year.
Do you know how much they are for?
I believe the state is $180,000 a year. And the federal, off the top of my head, I want to say around $420,000 a year.
What they
And
choose.
I can confirm all of that and email it to Al. I just don't have that.
I'm new to the party. Those are city funds?
Yes.
Yeah. General fund.
The general fund?
Uh-huh.
Unless it's watershed.
Unless, I don't know, some of the departments pay part of it for the.
I would suspect there probably is some
Indirect costs.
allocation because you've got
Watershed,
airport
Right.
issues that you would need to
Okay.
lobby about,
Separate those.
as well as watershed issues that
Okay.
you want to.
Watershed and airport,
So
yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
we paid a third each, a third general fund, aviation, watershed, to keep those funds separate and keep their work separate.
So that's the lobbying discussion, and hopefully, soon we will follow up on discussions that we have here, because what I want us to do, particularly, not just this item, but any item that we have that has a budgetary component, I want the council to get on it early so we can start fashioning a budget before we get into budget season, because once the new year starts, we're off and running. So I'm just putting that out for discussion purposes. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Ms. Archibald?
So on the lobbyist piece, you have a team that was sort of a trial run. Is it?
It's working for me, yeah, and they reached out to everybody else as a resource as well.
I was gonna thank you, but you already said it.
Oh, okay.
But is that a trial run, or, how do we, if we were to say, yeah, we'd like to have a lobbying team or a lobbyist, what would be the mechanics of that?
I would I think that the council needs to pass a resolution saying that this is what the council wants to do, and then we would have to go through the procurement process to do it. But I think it has to be a collective decision, if that's the direction the council. So a lot of the stuff we're talking about, if people want to see it progress, we gotta have some sort of affirmative legislation or something to move us forward. So if somebody here thinks that or wants to move in that direction, I think you say that, the council wants to do this, and then we can go through steps like any other department would be to do an RFP, outline what it is that we want the people to do, et cetera, and put it out to the market and see what we get back.
So the team that I met, Tripp and Rufus and whatever, so they would be not available or available?
I mean, they could submit, if the council got to the part of submitting proposals, they could submit a proposal.
But
along with any other team that's out there that provides lobbyists.
Are they still working for you?
Right now they are for this finance period.
Okay.
So next month, or the end of the month, I forgot when it ends, they'll be gone.
And so,
yeah, because it's a small purchase.
Okay.
But I did do the same thing. I did reach out to several lobbyist firms before I selected who I wanted to work with.
So you don't need anything legislative to continue to do that?
No, because it's under the $20,000 threshold, but we did, again, still reach out to others and got prices and picked the best price and who we thought, but at the end of that, it's over.
I think. Okay, cool.
And I do think there would need to be a resolution from the council saying the council wants to engage a lobbyist firm to work with them on X, Y, and Z. And then once we get the council to agree on that, I mean, my office or the director, council staff, whomever, can move to the next step of helping to develop the RFP and that kind of thing. And then we gotta have the funding, which means you're probably not gonna, unless we find funding now, you probably won't be able to start it this legislative session because the budget doesn't come up for discussion until June. So we're really talking about the year following.
Okay, so my last question is, would that be a committee on council or finance? Where would the resolution, if we were gonna do it in a committee, where would it be?
I think a committee on council, because it's a council saying that that's what they want, and finance executive would have to take the mantle of the procurement piece and the finding the money piece. What did she say?
Joint referral with the work session.
Right, so if somebody does a resolution, I can then refer it to both committees to make sure the I's and T's are dotted on both sides.
That's a good answer.
That was good.
Okay, the next one, if there's no more on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see him. I
Well, no, I raised it late, but I was gonna say, I don't have any objection to having a separate lobbyist on behalf of the council. I know at one point we were talking about, you don't want lobbyists going in the door back to back. You know, you got executive, you know, you got administrative lobbyists, and then you got our lobbyists walking behind them saying something different, or saying something that's slightly different. I understood that potential conflict, and so, but I still think that it's something we should explore. But part of the exploration should be setting up what we want to see done. What are the metrics that we judge lobbyists by, that we judge consultants by, that we judge lawyers by? I think that a lot of our angst comes when we see money go out the door and we forget, you know, a year later, like, what is the outcome supposed to be again? Oh, they had meetings. What did they do? You know, so as part of our challenge, as we were talking earlier with the, talking earlier about the parliamentarian and about other things, is really, you know, if we could get what we wanted out of the existing lobbyists that are supposed to be jointly, as most, you know, jointly for council land, then we could articulate, we want legislation passed and, you know, crazy stuff avoided, and presentations on the like. Are we getting that? Yes, no, you get paid, you don't get paid, you know, or we don't like your contract, you breached the contract because we didn't get the things that we agreed to when we established the contract. That would be for the lobbyists that are already procured, Holland Knight, or that would also be for any lawyers, the lobbyists that we would go forward. I think it's just like, our challenge is contracts need to have established outcomes so that you can say you breached the contract, you did deliver, or you didn't deliver, just like somebody coming to your house to fix a dishwasher. That's a contractor. All these lobbyists, all these lawyers, all these consultants are contractors, and I understand that they have, casual conversations and they have, professional conversations that their networking allows them to get in and out of, but I mean, what we don't see is the value directly, and that's why we question stuff. And so until we can get those questions satisfied, then we procure who we want to procure because we have more control over that person, that group. And I think that's what Council President has done with the lobbying group. But if we could get it out of the people we already pay, then we wouldn't be resorting to this. And that's what's happening, I see, in a number of our engagements.
Mr. Froggy.
Yeah, and this is probably more for a full debate when we get on the matter, but I have some reticence on us having a lobbying presence at the Capitol. And there's different gradations of how it could be set up and articulated, because I think it just dilutes our ability as a city to get anything done at the Capitol if we have the mayor driving one conversation, us driving another, even if they're separate issues. Ideally, the system would work where we work with the mayor.
Yes.
We come up with a platform that most of us can agree on that should go forward, which is kind of how it's set up, and maybe not have to be working that way to its fullest. But I just worry if we start our own legislative push every year with our own lobbying effort, it's going to get messy and the city loses out overall. That's my broader philosophy. I think there may be one issue that we're all really passionate about that the mayor's not picking up and running with, and we think we're going to be effective at lobbying the Capitol where it may make sense to do so. But I'd rather see us focus our energies on working with the mayor's office, because I think she has a right to say, look, this is where I think the city should be going. We're going to push on these issues, but she should be collaborating with us and listening to us and what we think should come forward too. So it makes me a little uncomfortable going down that road, but we can have that debate if it comes up.
So, yeah, and I understand that, and I don't disagree with you. Hopefully it doesn't take you 20 years to figure it out. I mean, my experience with that, and I think that would be the most efficient way to do it, but I do want people to consider, if you want to kind of move some stuff, it doesn't have to be on everything, and it doesn't have to be in a competing fashion. It may be narrowly tailored to specific issues. Like right now, mine is narrowly tailored to the airport. When Ms. Shepherd did it on her own, but it was narrowly tailored to wanting to get the tire issue. So I hear you, and it's up to the council. It may take a while for you all to get to that point. Yes.
Can I just relate in another jurisdiction where we had Holland and Knight as lobbyists, that it became important for the council, and I mean, this is what we had to come to, is that the council had to insist, okay, we want this kind of reporting on this regular basis. And it wasn't done readily, but part of what you are talking about is sort of setting forth your expectations and asking them, because you're paying a lot of money to get that kind of reporting, and there are enough people who work there that you can get regular. Well, just a suggestion based on other places where I've worked. I don't know how it works here, and I'm learning, but it can happen. I mean, they're not going to do it voluntarily. You have to kind of insist on it.
You're right, because we used to have that kind of reporting. I can't. It may
a long time ago.
Yeah, I said it was prior to 2000. And I think it was like 2000, prior to 2008. No, it was not even born. I'm trying to remember. It was between Bill Campbell's administration and the president.
It was the last time. It was when we had Watershed, and they were going up.
And the council pushed for it.
It was during Franklin's administration.
But then before that was just the water, and then Campbell's administration.
And then
they were pretty good about.
The economy tanked, and so the feds weren't giving us any money after 2008 for a while.
We didn't have the money for any lobby.
Anything else on lobbyists? Mr. Shook, I see your card.
Yeah, just a reminder, wasn't that long ago when our lobbying for a city, to use our example, was done by our local elected representatives in Congress and State House. All right? Now, that, I don't know if we stopped asking or if they stopped picking up the phone. Maybe they're too busy raising money. I don't know. But it's a shame we now have to hire lobbyists instead of picking up the phone, calling John Lewis or whoever, fill in the blank. Here's my concern to flesh out what Andre brought up. I think there's a really broadly shared consensus that there's anxiety that we're not getting enough information about what's going on over there. But paying to have someone to provide that kind of information is a lot different from paying someone to persuade other people. And for one thing, that suggests that we have a negotiating role to play, which suggests that we should be in a bargaining posture. I don't know what we have to bargain to change people's minds. Just some thoughts.
Anything else on that? So the next I'm gonna go to is the process for committee assignments. So we will be having that reported the first meeting in December. And I have the option of pretty much rolling over, staying where we are, to the extreme of making a bunch of different changes. My office will be getting with you all so I can sit and talk with you all individually about your committee. I have had some feedback related to the committee, and we'll entertain other feedback to make a decision on how to move forward. The first time I did have my own personal criteria about chairmanships and whether or not you posted stuff online or transparent. Hopefully the open checkbook is working and is updated and can satisfy that portion of it. But I would like to just sit down and have discussions with you. And last time I was a little bit more liberal. If I put you somewhere you wanted to move, that kind of thing. Well, this time I'm, whatever I decide, I guess it will be a decision. But I want to do it with your input. And so I will be talking with you. Why are you looking like that, Joyce?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
No, she's first,
Okay,
go
Ms.
ahead.
Archibald.
For those of us who have 4 committees, will we get gold stars or what?
I can give you a star.
bonus.
I need something. I think, who else have 4 committees?
I have 4
Not me.
committees now.
How many?
No.
3.
Now, some people are gonna have 4 if we're gonna keep
Yes.
Who has
7 on
4?
the committee.
I have 4. Natalie and I
So
have 4.
remember the ones who have 4.
Okay.
And maybe we get
No,
3
remember
next
the ones
time.
that have the longest. Because sometimes 4 equals to 3.
Well, I'll look at the number of committees people are on, also people's attendance at committees, committees, whether you punctual or not, whether we getting business done.
my card
I'm gonna look at the whole gamut.
I may go down to
Ms. Shepherd?
Briefings or no briefings?
I may get lucky.
Ms. Shepherd?
So, I would say that, like the committees I'm on 3 committees. But this is a choice that I made, which I'm okay with it. The 3 committees I'm on is all one day, back to back to back. By the time I go home in the evening time,
Exhausted. Yeah, I had that
I'm
scheduled
crawling
1 year.
into the bed, but I'm all right with that because I'm on utilities, CDHS, and public safety. And so, but I would tell you, you had put me on another committee, and me and one of my colleagues swapped because we wanted to.
Because you wanted to be on the other committee.
Right, and she
And I'm
wanted
cool.
to, and she wanted to be
I'll
on
swap
another
with
committee.
anybody, y'all. I mean,
And so, but what I heard you say is you like.
I'm saying I'm not necessarily going to honor swaps. That's what, I'm just saying it out front because I know that you wanted to do that. And I accommodated
But why would
you,
you
but I
not
think
hon-
it's fair
why would you not honor
because it's
swap?
up to me to decide that. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't decide that, but I want to be straight up with you all. When I said, you all understand, it is not an easy process in trying to figure out who won all committees. That was just like putting together a puzzle. And I try to be very fair and make sure that we were balanced, being diverse, number of the women, number of women, black, number of white. I just wanted to make sure that we were diverse. So when I set that out and you asked to change, I accommodated you. And when I did that, I also said to you, Ms. Shepherd, I'm doing it this time, but that does not mean that every time you request to change an assignment I give you, that I would honor that. And I'm just repeating what I said to you at the time when I did it. So I accommodated. You can ask.
So I'm just saying in terms of what again, if I was in your position,
Okay.
that I would look at it not only in terms of what you define as whatever, but also in terms of teamwork and having the consensus of people who are working together to look at it in terms of how can you help your folks that you're representing and making sure that they're happy also. And so for me, it's not just about based on whatever, because when I look at CDHS now, I look at it in terms of a balance. I'm looking at, it's interesting how that looks, and I'm not sure if it's a balance. And so when you're looking at that, because I think we have
I don't know.
look at CDHS and look at it the next time you go and look at it. So what I'm saying is when you're doing that,
What you mean?
Who is, okay, raise your hand if you're on CDHS. Well, okay, 2 guys, 3 girls.
Three guys,
one of
3
these
girls.
committees,
Yeah, we look good.
It's
Three
perfect.
white.
Y'all are all pretty, everybody's.
Perfect.
Let me Shepherd finish.
So bottom line is, I'm just saying again, in terms of making everybody as happy as you can. And I know you're not gonna be able to do that in some cases. I've had scenarios where I've asked and I'm like, I get it. I can't do it. You're not gonna be able to do it. But in a situation where there's not a conflict, I don't see any problem. I just would like for people to be happy also.
I like people to be happy, but I have to do the best I can, and I understand in doing that, I can't make everybody happy. Also, I want to make people clear about this since we're getting more into the weeds on this. I just want to make sure everybody hears me, because the simple thing to do is just appoint the committees as they are and keep it moving. But, and it may be okay with some people, but I do hear I hear from individual council members about issues with other individual members. You may not know that. You might be sitting next to somebody on a committee, and the way that you operate on the committee, I'm trying to tell y'all now, or the way somebody else operates on the committee, you may think everything is fine in your world, but it may not be fine with other people. So that's why I'm saying I haven't decided, because I have had some complaints.
Oh, did you see her look at me?
I've had some complaints. And so I have not decided if I'm going to take the easy route or if I'm going to make changes. But I am going to have
Mama, I want you to be
discussions.
fair to everybody,
Huh? So I'm going to have discussions. We will be setting up with everybody to see where everyone is before I make any changes. But I would hope that whether you like it or not, unless I just totally put you somewhere that you just can't stand it, and that has happened with council members, that you would honor the fact that as council president, there are only so many mandated things that I have authority to do. And appointing the committee chairs and appointing the committee assignments is one of them, and I plan on doing it. And I hope to make everybody as comfortable as possible in that process. But understand why what may be comfortable for you may not be comfortable for other people. So I can't please everybody, and I'm gonna do my best, but I can't. Yes, Michelle.
And I just hope that you're doing it based on what's right for everybody too, because I've had situations, not you, in the past, where people literally told me that they were throwing me to the dogs over there and let me look out the window based on politics. And
I'm not gonna make political decisions.
and also it was based on one chairperson saying, I'll be the chair if you don't put this person on there, this person, and this person. And so I'm
they do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious, making deals behind the scenes. So I'm just saying, I hope you don't, I'm just talking about history, and I hope that you're not going down that road.
Well,
I don't think you are.
That's not me.
No.
I'm gonna make it on practical reasons, and I will be able to talk with you if I point you to something that you don't like and you wanna know why, just come and ask me, I'll tell you. That's the best I can do, is be as transparent as I can with you as to why I made whatever changes I made. Anything else on committee assignments? Okay, the fun part, and then we can go home.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to make it sound like fun, and that's council meeting decorum.
Oh my God.
I sent a memo to everybody on October 2nd, and I'm gonna go through some of those items. But I'm gonna start with something I just got some information on just to get a sense. Mr. Cardinale has sent me a memo related to the fact that I have, well, he said I started it, but I didn't. But I have enforced it, which has been the practice at the council meetings that during public comment that we do not accept applause. The reason why I do it is for twofold. One, the person who's at the mic talking, if the audience applauds during that person's time, then you're eating into that person's time, or you can't hear them talking if they keep talking. And two, it does drag out and make longer that public comment. I've been more strict in following that protocol. It's not in the code, it's not anything codified. And if it's something that, and I'm going to continue to do that, because if people start applauding, then what does that mean? You don't yell and scream at the same time. I mean, it can just, I think it kind of starts to build up a different environment. I'm going to continue to enforce it. At this point, it's not in the code or not in the code, but if you all want to do something different, or you want me to enforce that differently, then you need to sort of say, or make a motion, the council president, let everybody talk, let everybody applaud. I mean, my ruling would need to be challenged. So I'm just putting that out there, but I believe that it causes for a more efficient meeting, particularly since we do have such extensive public comment. Ms. Shepherd.
I support you on that. I really do, and I think it has been for smoother meetings. I like the yes, no cards, all of that. And I do appreciate when you just on point and says stop. I really appreciate that.
So that goes also to, I think, a comment you made earlier. And I'm trying to get people, because we have had it where it's not been totally enforced. I think consistency gets people, so I'm trying to move them to that. But there's two things I want to discuss. One is when we're having public comment. And some of you may not recognize it, but when people are sitting in the audience, they see every single thing that you do. And you may not think that you're slighting them, but they see it as a slight. One, if you're talking to the person next to you, I don't think people think you're not going to look at your cell phone, but, maybe not stay down there 30 minutes without looking up. Every once in a while, look up. If you're getting up, I'm just telling you complaints that I've got. If somebody's at the mic talking and you want to go to the bathroom or go to the side to talk to somebody, as opposed to just wait till they finish and go in between speakers, because if you get up while somebody's speaking, they think you're walking out on them. Or if you're not in your seat, they think that you don't care. But that's up to you all to decide that. We have done better in limiting the sidebar conversations, which I think has helped. I know some of you sometimes you might need to eat or whatever. I would just encourage you to maybe go sit in the back to eat. I'm not going to mention somebody, but I was like, oh my goodness. I wanted to say something to the person, but the person council member didn't really realize what they were doing, but they had a bag of popcorn. They were eating, okay. Then they got to the end. And I wanted Mr. Hillis. I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to bring attention to it. Not like anybody didn't see him tapping the bag for that last liquor. So let's do that. So as much as I'm asking you all to do that, I'm gonna need your support because it will become more of a backlash. I've been trying to move in that direction, but I am going to move a little bit more because if you all aren't booing and hissing and stuff when they're at the mic, I'm not gonna accept them booing and hissing and whatever when you all are talking. And I really wanna make a line of demarcation between this is public comment and this is them conducting the business. And that's why I tell them, if you can't emotionally contain yourself, go watch the meeting in another room because you've gotta let council people talk.
Can we go watch the meeting in another room?
Yes, ma'am.
Vote by proxy?
As long as you come back to vote, which I'll come back to. But I'm really gonna move more on that. Some of them have removed themselves, which has been good. But I think that we just gotta do that. The other thing that, the audience is smart. When you try to corral them in one corner, they morph into another. So now what I'm having, I said, oh, okay, I get y'all. Now what I figured out is, so if you were talking, I could see you talking. So now what they're doing is they're not talking, they're moaning or so their mouth is closed. So I don't exactly know whose mouth. So I'm gonna have to remove sections. I heard the moo come from here. I don't know, but it's just gonna be a learning process, and I'm gonna try to be consistent on that because I think that's how we have effective meetings.
Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
just gonna say, sometime when I walk out on people, thank you, Marcia, keep me over. Who are talking, those are people who've been talking for 20, 30 minutes. That, we waive all their time, and there may be somebody who's bullying us, who's just talking and pontificating, so.
But you have a right to do what you wish. I'm just saying, just understand how it's being viewed.
Okay, that's fine, I'm all right with that.
Anybody else on the public comment on that part? Okay, now here's the one that's been a perennial issue that the council has addressed. The parliamentarian brought it up to me as well because he read all our code. He said, well, this isn't being followed. And that is that our code says that we are supposed to vote on all issues that come before us. And there have been times when people have left the floor, and usually when the public notices it, is this a major issue, and you leave the floor when this major issue, I'm gonna call it, vote comes up, and you don't vote. That's when people really recognize it. However, the code says that we are required to vote on all issues. And so that means the major issue votes, and that means the smaller issue routine votes. And we haven't figured that out. I had said that I would try to hold votes open to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to vote on something. But I haven't really done that because I wanted to have a discussion with you all on how we can either, one, accomplish what the charter says, or two, if somebody has enough guts to try to change it. I remember back in, the reason it was put in there and was because council members routinely left the floor or abstained when there were major issues. And when the charter review did it, they were tired of that, and they put it in there that required all votes to be taken, and you can only abstain if you have a conflict. So that was the purpose of it. So I just would like some of you all's input on that, because I would like to make sure that we're following, me, I want to make sure we're following the code, which would maybe, if once you come in, and then the other thing is when you come in, when we do the roll call, if you're there for the roll call, fine, but if you're not, you have to announce that you're here. And that's why now some of you looked at me like I was crazy, but I say, get on the mic and say that you're present. Because at that time, then the clerk has it on the record that you're there, since you weren't there at the time we did the roll call. Mr. Shook, Ms. Smith.
Well, the code also says all money papers have to go to the finance committee. I think the public does a good job of keeping its own score and applying its own penalties? Is that our job? I mean, we all know in the past, members of council who had that reputation, the public knew it, and I think acted accordingly. I kind of trust them.
Ms. Smith?
Well, we had a past council president that, in my opinion, went a little too far with that ruling. You might remember I used to get on the mic and announce to the world I was going to the bathroom. And so I feel like somewhere I did, because it was just, anyway, it went too far. But we do have to go to the bathroom. We have to run down to our house. Stuff comes up for all of us. And so this is just me, just maybe throwing an idea out there. Because I do come to you sometimes and I'm like, I'm gonna run to the bathroom. You know, and what I'm kind of asking without asking, so I'll just say it here today. If we've got a vote coming up, I'm gonna go fast. If I'm coming to tell you, I'll let you know if I'm doing 3 things or 1 thing. And then you know I'm gonna be gone and I might miss a couple of votes. But if I'm just running to the bathroom and and Amir knows, because I am trying to breakneck speed, get back to vote on consent, because like you said, our public comment goes so long, we barely have time between the agenda and the consent agenda to run to the bathroom and come back. So if we come to you and say, I'm running to the bathroom, that could sort of be an indication of, oh, we're gonna take a deep breath and slow down until Carla can get back from the bathroom. So
the thing is, everybody doesn't say, hey, I'm getting ready to step out. Well, and I don't have the authority to excuse anybody. The only person can excuse you is you. For instance, you know, I read that code section that says, you know, if you come to a meeting and then you leave, you're excusing yourself from the meeting and you're gone. So I don't know if there's some middle ground where there is some legislation, and I don't know, committee on council that could happen that gives the president the authority to excuse you so that you're not dinged for not being there on the vote. But I don't have that authority.
I'm just saying that maybe, and I do it already, but maybe everyone could sort of make up their own mind if they want to kind of relax it for a minute, just to let you know. We don't have to say we're going to the bathroom. We say I'm going to step out for a minute. Just take a breath before we vote on this next vote.
Well, and I mean, I would have to know that somebody has a desire to vote on something, and we'd have to hold the vote open. But I will say, because I got a lot of comment about.
Are you going to the bathroom?
About certain people leaving during major votes, and if it's a major, high-profile, high-interest vote, just for my own sanity's sake, after the vote, that I don't have to get a bunch of people calling me, I am going to hold it and attempt to find the members that are missing if I don't know that they said, hey, I'll be right back in a minute or whatever, because the pushback or the feedback afterwards was unbelievable. And you know, now if it's just a regular vote, then that's a different thing. And like Mr. Shook says, people are judged by however they judge. But if it's a major high-profile vote, like the G word or something like that, I think that we need to try to make sure that people are on the floor so that they can vote. Mr. Shook?
Well, I was just going to say, you know, I remember a couple times when Lisa, in the run-up to a seminal vote, would look around and say, all right, hang on a minute, somebody go get Mary. And then we'd have the vote when whoever it was got back to the floor. But she'd send someone to go drag them out there.
And I do have some people now, I hope I won't.
I would encourage you, you know, to judiciously apply that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Boone and then Mr. Bond.
Also, during proclamation time, just say if I'm honoring Preston McCoy, who's 80 years old, lives on Plymouth Drive, and I look up and it's only 4 people up there. I mean, you know, that's not good either, but I think that the voters have to just deal with whoever at election time. We can't make people do certain things, but I would hope that, you know, they would want to see proclamations, but most people don't. They run in at photo time, but I mean, it's only so much we can do. If people don't want to stay, you know.
Ms. Bond?
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with Howard. you know, that when I was on the council when they did the change back in the 90s, and in the previous 2 terms served with an individual who was the invisible man when it came to voting. And I think that the voters do the best job of holding elected officials accountable for their conduct, because what might, and then move to the next point, what you may perceive to be a major vote or a major issue, an individual may not see it that way. So you may be holding out on what you perceive to be, you know, a major issue or important to certain individuals, but in a certain district or a certain area of town or a certain member, that might not be the same priority. You know, all things are relative. You know, all politics are local. So what someone may perceive to be a big deal, you know, downtown next to the, you know, the basketball place and may not be a big deal to somebody else. So I think that we're all adults. Everybody got here on their own. We got elected. They stood for election. The voters put us in, and voters can take us out. The voters will hold us accountable for what we do. And I don't think you or any other council president ought to have that burden. I mean, if a person is not on the floor for whatever reason. I mean, I'm diabetic. Sometimes I have to leave the floor to take insulin. You know, sometimes that takes 5 minutes. Sometimes that takes longer. You know, so it's particularly certain times during the day because of the way I don't want to get into the weeds about my medical condition. But sometime in the afternoons, I have to be home. You know what I mean? For more than just 10, 15, sometimes it's 20 minutes. You know, depending on, you know, my blood sugar wave. So sometimes I got to leave, and sometimes it's not always convenient. And I'm sure other people have, you know, other issues where their staff may call them off. Or just like now, my kids are trying to call me or something else. So I think that we should just leave it to the voters to decide. Now, if it's an issue of a quorum, sure, we should make sure that we've got a quorum to operate, and we can call for the members to come back to the floor or do whatever. But, I mean, there are a lot of different reasons why people get pulled off. You know, and it's not always to avoid, you know what I mean, to, you know, making a decision or having a vote.
Okay, Mr. Farocki, excuse me, Dickinson Farocki.
Have we ever had like a set recess within the meeting, meaning a 5 to 10 minute bathroom break? If that's the thing that we find that a lot of members.
And that's something I will offer. And that's one of the suggestions I was gonna have. If I find that we have a long meeting, like maybe after a long public comment, maybe a 10 or 15 minute break to accommodate people.
Well, I was gonna say, maybe it's more predictable than that, meaning no matter what, at 3 it happens, and at 5 it happens. So even
It
if
could be in the middle of public comment, it could, we don't know what.
But it just gives the, you know, people, if it's a bio break, it gives you something to look for, like, okay, I'm gonna hold this for 5 more minutes, you right? I don't know, I mean, all right, y'all figure something else out. But I was just trying to give it something that gives it room for, so you can call a recess if 3 or 4 members come to you and say, it's that time.
Okay, and that's reasonable.
Yeah, I agree with Howard and Mike. I think, look, whether I choose to abstain or I choose to vote every single time or I don't vote at all, you know, I will rise and fall on the bed that I make, and the public will vote me in or out. But I think that's how it should be for all of us. And that's kind of, I'm more laissez-faire about it. I think, look,
right.
You do what you do, I do what I do, and people will decide whether we should be here or not.
But you all have to understand that, you know, as a presiding officer, I'm the one that gets the complaints because I am the one that's running the meeting. So what I'm gonna do, and I'll see how it works, I will do the best I can. I'm not gonna, every vote, but I will do the best that I can to make sure that we hold the vote open, or have someone to look out in the hall in case you're talking to somebody in the atrium or whatever to pull you in. Because sometimes it's just a matter, you just didn't have 2 seconds to get in to vote. I'm going to try to follow the code as much as possible, and particularly if it is a major issue, we will try to make sure all the members are on the floor so we can vote. Now, if you just go leave City Hall and disappear and can't nobody find you, at some point we'll determine that. But we will do, I will do the best that I can, because I'm the one that takes the heat because other people did other things. And so I'm just gonna try that. We'll see how it works, and you all govern yourself as you can. Mr. Bond and Ms. Shepherd.
Well, I was just going to say to you, don't take the heat. And when people call you and complain about a member, refer them to that member.
That would be great.
You know, I mean, seriously, I mean.
I do that as well,
You
but
know.
I still have to hear it first.
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, just refer them on, I mean, because that's the only way that people can ultimately really be held accountable.
But then, y'all also understand, I have a responsibility as well as the presiding officer. And that's why the presiding officer has subpoena power and all that other stuff, not that anybody's ever used that, is because you're supposed to conduct a meeting, and I have that area. So I'm just telling you how I'm gonna perceive it. I'm gonna do the best I can to help everybody, whether it's through breaks or otherwise, so that we can stay as close to the code as we can. We may not be 100%, but we can certainly get to 98, 99%. Ms. Shepherd, did you have something?
I was kind of gonna say what Michael was saying, is that, and what Amir was saying, I mean, as a council president, I hear you, but that's small to me compared to some of the stuff I get out of the district. So if that's all you got to worry about, then
I wish it was, but it is one of many, one of many.
I mean, what I'm saying is, don't stress over there.
I'm
And
not.
I like what you're saying in terms of refer them on to the folks who doing that or whatever, you know. And because when I get calls from other folks about other, I said that's not mine. That's Miss Smith. That's Miss. Call them. I can't.
Yeah, but I do have, and I have to keep saying this. I do have a responsibility in the role as the presiding officer, to make sure, you know, if nothing else, make an attempt. I'm not gonna corral anybody, put a rope
And I don't think we
around
that rogue. I mean, are we
to
really,
make sure that we are.
We're not that rogue, are we? I mean, are we really that bad?
I'm not trying to get us to be that bad. I'm just telling you, I'm giving you all feedback that I get. And that's why I'm bringing it out to the council.
Right.
That's all. Anything else? Oh, Ms. Boone.
Well, what's equally important to me is that when we honor smaller people, as opposed to the Chick-fil-A's of the world, the USCFs of the world, that, you know, show up for a little while, then leave. It looks bad when somebody that's not as noted is being honored and everybody is gone and only 3 or 4 people up there. So I just think we need to put a little effort on that too.
It's 2:59. Are there other items? I hope not. Motion to adjourn. Let's go home. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. Mr. Bond wants to pray.
No.
Even Davis Way Friday.
Mr. Bond.
No, I always put up a Christmas tree. Can we decorate for the holidays or have a door contest?
Oh, yeah, that would
I'm an
be nice.
artistic person, I like to do that.
Are we gonna do something for the holidays for the whole office and everybody?
Yeah, we had that report.
For the open house.
You didn't hear that?
No, not the open house.
No, we talked about Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Okay, I mean,
I put up my tree Monday.
Well, that's Mr. Bond's.
I'll go out tomorrow.
All right, thank you all.
Did everybody sign Ms. Fiona's card?